Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hassan Makansi from Dubai Knowledge Village. I would like to welcome everyone today in this exclusive event organized by Dubai Knowledge Village and SUKAD, a leading business partner in consultancy and training. In today's event, we're going to feature 3 presentations from experts of the global project management community. Moving into our first presentation, did you know that 19% of all IT projects fail, while only 28% are delivered successfully? The next presentation will take you with an overview of Microsoft Solutions Framework, which is indispensable for the success of delivering IT projects. Our presenter is the co-founder and president of ITEC Solutions and Training. He is also the co-founder and president of PMI Chapter in Greece. He managed hundreds of IT projects, and he delivered more than hundreds of presentations on ICT and project management. Please welcome with me Mr. Theophanis Giotis.
Thank you. Can you hear me from the mic or both of you? Right. Let's see if technology helps us. All right, it works. Actually, I come from Greece. I'm Theophanis Giotis. I'm coming from Athens, Greece. And in the next 45 minutes, I'm going to tell you why we're having so many problems in the IT industry. Which one of you comes from IT? IT? Oh, a lot of people. All right. So I'm going to present you the MSF. Anybody of you knows what MSF is? MSF? 1, 2, 3. All right. So, I'm the CEO of FITEC, I'm the president of the Greek PMI chapter, I am the international correspondent for PM Forum in Greece, and I have graduated the PMI Leadership Institute Masterclass. Now, this is the agenda we're going to cover in the next 45 minutes. What is MSF? What are the obstacles for the IT projects? The foundation principles, the mindsets, and the good practices to use in order to deliver IT projects, how we build an MSF team, what we do for risk management, and what is the project life cycle we must use in order to deliver IT projects. Now, do you know this chart? Everybody knows it. How the customer explained it, how the project leader understood it, how the analyst described it, what the programmer wrote, how the business consultant described it. The documentation was 0. The operation installed just a rope, but they charged the customer a lot, and it was no support at all, and this is what the customer wanted. Does it remind anything to you of IT projects? Everybody's dissatisfied? All right. Now, let's have a quick quiz. Suppose that you are a project manager for a software development project, and you have 20 people on your team. The project is behind schedule, SPI 08, which means you are going to finish late, and someone must talk to the customer about the following issue. The developers, again, are not sure about the functionality of a specific form. Question is, who is going to talk to the customer? I want you to write down or to remember which answer you select. Read the 6 answers. You, the project manager, the developer who is working on the form, any developer can be fine, the account manager who sold the solution, anyone from the team, none of the above. Please select the number you think is the appropriate person to talk to the customer. We're going to see later the solution, all right? Write down. I'm going to check you later. All right, let's see what MSF is. MSF stands for Microsoft Solutions Framework, and it offers guidance on how to organize people and projects in order to plan, build, and deploy successful IT operations. Yes?
Just a second. The audio I hear in the back is not. You're not getting.
Yeah. Okay. You want to switch to the handheld mic?
This doesn't work. Is this better?
No,
it's worse. Now?
Yes.
All right. Let's take this one now.
You want this? This also works.
All right. Now you hear me better? All right. I'm like a singer now. All right. Actually, MSF is using two models. The first one is called the team model. What is the team model? How we organize the team. If we have a lot of people in our team, what roles we give to the team. The second model is the process model. How we divide the project into phases. All of you know that in order to deliver a project, we must divide the project into phases. And it uses three disciplines: project management discipline, risk management discipline, and the readiness discipline. Now, let's go to the problems. Everybody knows what a successful project is. Deliver it on time, on budget, on specs, using predefined quality. Any one of you knows this book? My Life is Failure? Buy it. It's one of the best books ever written for project management in the IT industry. The author of the book is called Jim Johnson, and you're going to see the data from the book now. Now, does anybody of you knows what was the first quote about projects, about failures in projects, about problems in projects? It was 2,500 years ago from a Greek guy called Xenophon, who said that most problems arise in situations where you have to manage multiple projects. This is the first even written quote worldwide about problems in project management. Now, please have a look at this picture. Actually, I got the new information from 2006. What this information is about. Only 35% of the projects, of IT projects, are delivered successfully. 20% of them are killed, which means they never finish, and 46 of them are having problems. This means over budget, over time, less of quality, and things like this. So look at the data since 1994. Look at this information, it's almost 50%, which means 1 out of the 2 projects we deliver has got problems. Right, the successfuls started from 16%, now we are 35%. Now, this is how much over time we deliver the projects. It was 164%, now we are steadily something about 72%. This means if the original plan was for 12 months, we're going to deliver the project in 19 months or 20, something like this. Look at the cost. The cost is almost 50% over budget. Almost. It was 108%, now it's 50%. Look at this important thing. This means under scope. What's the meaning of under scope? We don't deliver what we promised the customer. This means we deliver less than we promised. How much less? About 60 to 65% for the last 10 years. Now, does anybody of you knows this report? It was conducted by KPMG, I think, 1 year ago. Why do projects fail? Which are the 3 main reasons for the project failures? Anybody of you knows it? It's free on the internet. The top 3 reasons are: number 1, unclear change of scope requirements. So we don't manage scope well. Second, poor project management processes. We do not apply project management to it. Third, lack of executive sponsorship. MSF can help us in the first 2. All right? Now, let's go to the foundation principles. What are the foundation principles? Are guiding concepts for how a project team should be work together in order to produce results. Let's have a look on the 9 foundation principles. First one, open communications, which means everybody must know what's going on. Second, shared vision, what we do. Third, empower team members. Empower team members means give something to a team member and he's going to do it. Clear accountability, shared responsibility. Everybody is accountable for something, but if we fail all together. It's like a football team or a basketball team. Not only one loses, the whole team loses. Incremental value, stay agile. Agile means you must be ready for changes. Invest in quality management. Learn from experience This is what we call lessons learned in project management, and partner with customers. Now, mindsets. What is mindset? A mindset is how the team members should approach the solution delivery. Let's have a look on the 8 mindsets. First one, the team is not a hierarchy, it's a team of peers. Not a hierarchy, it's a team of peers. We focus on business value. We don't care about information technology. We see the value of information technology for the customer. We look at the solution. We pay very close attention to the solution. We learn continuously. We deliver on triple constraint. This means that we deliver what we promise to the customer. So these are the 8 MSF mindsets. Best practices. What is the best practice? Best practice comes from experience. Let's see the first one. Use small multidisciplinary teams. Does anybody of you knows how big a team can be? How many people? 5, 10, 20, 1 million, or 100? How big? Other? Maximum 8. All right, there's a theory that comes from the army that says no more than 12 people. 12 is the maximum. Right. We have a different approach today in virtual teams because, you know, in virtual teams, a virtual team has more or less 20 to 50 people. So if you work in a room, a team should have no more than 12 people. So co-location. Co-location means the team members must be in the same room. If they are not in the same room, then we have a virtual team, which means we have more possibilities to fail. Third, we must design the solution with the 6 roles represented. You don't know the 6 roles, you're going to see the 6 roles later. So everybody must design the solution. Not only the project manager, not only the programmer. One of the common mistakes we do is that who designs the solution? Who designs an IT solution? Who is the worst people? Who is the worst guy to design it? The programmer, the developer. He is the worst guy. He shouldn't design it. And the team must be motivated. And something else we know, we must do planning. Planning means we must be specific early. We must know the specs of the solution very early. All right, let's go to the team model. If you look at project management methodologies, the only person that is mentioned in the methodology is the program manager, project manager. Do you know any methodology that mentions something else? Another role? Except the project manager? If you do, tell me. Have you ever seen this? What does it mean? Who knows the law of diminishing returns? What it says? This law says that the most you put in a process, the less you get out of the process. So, if one man can paint this room in 20 days, can 20 painters paint it in 1 day? No way. That's the law of diminishing returns. Here, only this guy can work. All the other people are watching. Many people believe that we can deliver projects because we have people. No, we cannot. Because if this is the only guy who can work, then even if I have a team of 200 people, they can do nothing. All right. Please read these statements and tell me who is announcing them, who is telling them, who is complaining about them. First is the customer, right. The second? Sponsor customer, right. It was not built, actually this is not what we needed. It's the customer game. It's difficult to use. We cannot use it. User, right. It doesn't operate in our environment. Maintenance support operations. This thing is unpredictable. This means that it has a lot of bugs. All right. Read these 3 in yellow. We couldn't get the information needed. Who is saying this? The developers, mainly. we didn't understand clearly what this application was about. Programmers again. We didn't know how the work of other team members affected our work. Again, the team members. So these are the usual complaints on the project. Have a look on the MSF team model. The MSF team model describes 6 roles. Let's start from the top. The top role is called program management or project management role. He is responsible for delivering the project within constraints. Another role, which is a clear one, is the developers. The development role delivers the specifications. Another role, testing. What is the testing role? Do you know this role? Do you use it? You do it, all right. Question. Suppose that you write an application and you have 20 developers. How many testers should you have? 2?
3.
Over 20? All right.
3.
If it's an operating system that you write, you must have 40 testers. If it's a simple application, you must have 20. The rate is 1 developer, 1 tester. That's life. Otherwise, you deliver applications with bugs. That's life. The minimum rate you can have is 1 developer, 1 tester. The minimum. For operating systems, it's 1 developer, 2 testers. All right. User experience. What is the role called user experience? This is the guy who designs the interface. This is the guy who talks to the customer, not the customer who pays the money, to the users of the customer, the users who are going to use the application. So, user experience. Product manager. This is the account manager, as we call it in many countries. How do you call it here? Product manager, account manager, sales manager is the guy who is talking to the customer. Account manager, all right. So he keeps the customer satisfied. And we have another role, which is called release management or logistics manager, who is the guy responsible for deploying the application or the system we built. So, we have 6 roles. Have a look on the next. Now here we have more detailed job descriptions. Program manager role, project management, solution architecture is the guy who designs the solution. I mean the architecture of the solution. Process assurance, administrative services. Look at the developers. These are the guys who implement the architecture, who write the application. Testers, test planning, test engineering, test reporters. Look at the user experience, a very serious role. Accessibility, internationalization, user advocacy, training materials, help materials. Usability research, user interface design. User interface design is this role. Product management, business value, marketing, customer advocacy, solutions planning. And the other role, which is release management, which is infrastructure, support operations, and logistics. Now, this is MSF version 3. In MSF version 4, this role becomes dual. One is doing the project management, and one guy is doing the solution architecture. So, if you look at MSF version 4, you're going to find that this role is double. The program management role, it's a double role. It's 2 people, not 1, 2 people. This is the very good slide. In MSF we have internal roles that do not talk to the customer, and external roles. Let's go to the tester. Tester is an internal role. He doesn't go to the customer, he doesn't talk to the customer. Development, the same. They don't visit the customer, never, ever, ever, ever. For any reason. Who talks to the customer? Product management. He talks to the customer. Look at the user experience role. The user experience talks to the users, to the people who are going to use the application. Because if you remember, the user experience role is the guy who designs the interface, not the guy, the people. Probably it can be more than one. And also he talks to operations and support. Why he talks to operations and support? Help desk, for example. Talking to operations and support, this role can find existing problems. So it's easy to design the new application better. Release operations. This role is external role, and he talks to the operations of the customer. architecture. Actually, this slide here is MSF version 4 because you see dual roles, program management and architecture. So the project manager or program manager talks to the project sponsor, and the architecture talks to the solution architects and technology architects. So, what is the lesson here? Do not ever let a developer or a tester go to the customer. So, if you are the customer, never accept a tester or developer. Why is this? Because the developer is thinking of what? Technology, not business value. He doesn't care. You tell him something and he says, all right, I'm going to put a copper box here. Who cares about the copper box? Right. Do you remember the previous exercise? Who talks to the customer about the problem I found on the form? Which is the correct answer? Read it again. Remember? Who talks to the customer? Who designs the interface? The user experience role, which means is 6. No one of them. The correct is 6. Only user experience. User experience is not mentioned here. That's why. Has anybody of you worked for a big company like Oracle, Microsoft, Cisco in software design? Do you apply these things?
Not in software designing, it's better than that. And I haven't worked in the software designing field.
Ah, right.
But yeah, worked in it.
Yes. Right. Let's go to the project risk management. What is risk management? Is it proactive or reactive? It's proactive. It's proactive. It should be proactive. It should be proactive. Who knows the definition of infinity? Have you ever heard of this? Albert Einstein? Read it. What it means? That the universe is not infinite, but the human stupidity is infinite. That's what risk management is about. You must be very careful. All of you probably know Titanic. Have you ever read the last interview of the captain of Titanic? He was saying, I'm the best captain in the world, I have the best ship in the world, and I will never have an accident. After 5 hours, he was at the bottom of the sea. Because he was very, very sure about what? His capabilities and his ship capabilities. Right. Risk management in MSF is based on PM book. Do you know PM book? Chapter 11. Chapter 11 says, risk management planning, how we do it, risk identification, we identify the risks, then we do quality and quantity measurement of the risks, risk response planning, and then risk monitoring and control. So, MSF says, I don't have anything new, use PM book, chapter 11. Now, let's go to the life cycle. Let's go to how we divide the project into phases. Right. MSF says that every IT project should be divided in 5 phases. The phase 1 is envisioning, phase 2 is planning, phase 3 is developing, phase 4 is stabilizing, and phase 4 and phase 5 is deploying. Now, the first milestone, the major deliverable is we must have a vision scope approved, a vision scope document approved, which means what is the vision of the solution. End of planning, we must have all the project plans approved, which means when we deliver the project, how we deliver it, who works, how much does it cost, everything. Then we develop the solution, we develop the solution here. When I say develop the solution, probably it's an IT solution, an IT deployment, or a software application solution. No problem, it's the same. Scope complete, and then we stabilize it. What do we mean we stabilize it? We test it. We test it in order to remove all known bugs. And then we deploy the solution internally to the customer or to the market. Quiz. Suppose that you sell IT solutions. In which phase you submit the offer to the customer? Which would be the best place to submit the offer? Here, correct? But we submit the offer where? Somewhere here. This means that actually when we submit an offer to the customer, we are not sure about what? About the project. That's why we have many differences and we have many failures. Actually, we should submit the offer here. In this place, we know the cost, the time frame, the specs, everything. Now, let's have a closer look on every phase. Phase 1. These are minor milestones. Core team organized, vision scope baseline. This is the major milestone. These are the deliverables. The most major deliverable here is the project charter. So this is phase 1. Let's go to phase 2. Phase 2 means we validate the technology we're going to use. Many projects fail because we have never validated the technology we use. Functional specification document, master project plans, development test environments, so we have the project plans approved here. This is second phase. Deliverables, functional specs, master project plans, master project schedules, risk management, and all other plans. If you look at PM Book, how many project plans are in PM Book? 8. 8 in total. Right? When we design the solution, MSF describes 3 designs: the conceptual design, the logical design, and the physical design. The conceptual design is let's make a house. The logical design is let's make it 2 floors, that many square meters, that many rooms, and so on. And the physical design is what? Exactly what I'm going to do. How many doors, what is the dimension of the door, how many meters high is the wall, and things like this. Who is driving this road? Who is in interesting, who has interest to finish this phase? The developers. Right. Not the developers. This is wrong. Should be here. Now, let's go to the development phase. Development phase means that we develop the solution. Who is developing the solution? Developers. So, developers are interested in finishing this phase. Here you're going to see internal release 1, release 2, release 3. This means that every day, MSF actually says that if you develop a product or an application, every day, at the end of the day, you must test the application. That's why testers start to work not at the end of the phase, but from the beginning of the phase. As the developers start writing the application, the testers start testing it. Let's go to the next phase. No, let's have a look at the deliverables here. Functional specification document, FRISD. Build images and solution code, developers. Test specs from the testers. User training, the user role produce it. Manuals from the user experience role. Deployment processes from the release manager. Installation scripts from the release manager. Marketing materials from the product role. You remember the role? And we go to the next phase, which means stabilizing. Do you think that we stabilize solutions only in the IT industry? Have you ever watched what's going on the car industry? How they stabilize the cars? How many they destroy before they make it? Yes. So it says 0 bug, release candidates, and then at the end of this phase we have what we call release to manufacturing. It's a critical point where we give the code or the solution to the production. If we produce a new CD to print the CD 1 million times, then this is the golden code, as we call it. Who is responsible for finishing this phase? Testing role. Look at the deliverables. Scripts and the installation documentation, end user help materials, end user communications, operation documentation, testings, and issue reports, quality metrics, release notes. And let's go to the next phase. This is the last phase, this is the deployment phase. Now, how many minutes? 5 minutes, right? Deployment. Here we have 2 options. The first one is to deploy the solution to the customer, and the second one is to deploy the product to the market, which means bring the product on the stores. All right. If we deploy the solution inside the customer, the first thing we do is to deploy the core technology, which means the main systems, servers. Then we go to every site, we visit every site and we deploy the technology on every site. Then we wait until the whole system is stabilized in order to have the deployment complete. Who is the role responsible for driving this phase? The operations manager. That's the guy who is responsible for finishing it. Look at the deliverables. These are the final deliverables that go to the customer. Operation and support information, revised processes, administration and training, configuration, repository for all solution documents, and lessons learned. All right, let's go to the conclusion. Team model. I'm going to make questions now. How many roles we have? 6. Program management, developers, testers, operations, logistics, user experience role, customer, product management role, who talks to the customer, and finished. Process model. How many phases? 5 phases, right? Disciplines. Project management discipline. I didn't say anything about it because you can use PMBOK for the project management discipline. MSF is based on PMBOK. Whatever is in PMBOK gets used here. Risk management. PMBOK again. Why we have it separate? We have it separate because we must be very proactive, very, very proactive on the risk management. Many people today say that project management is becoming risk management because the world is changing every day, every minute. And readiness discipline, I didn't mention it, it's a discipline that prepares people for learning new things. Right. How many minutes you have left for questions?
10 minutes for questions.
10 minutes for questions, all right.
Timing.
Now, questions. Let me come back to bring something here and you can ask me. Let's have this here, which is the most important. Actually, as far as I know, MSF is the only methodology or framework that is using descriptions for the team members. Anybody know something else? RAP. Yes, RAP is doing the same, yes. So, I'm going to ask questions here. Who is preparing the help for the customer? User experience. Who is translating a user interface screen to another language? User experience. Who is testing the code? Tester. Who is visiting the customer? Be careful.
Customer user.
I told you that testers and developers never go to the customer. The main contact for the customer is what? Product manager. Sometimes the product manager, when he goes to the customer, it brings with him what? A developer. But the main contact is what? Product manager. Yes. Is any case that the tester must go to the customer? There are special cases where you have problems when you install an application on the customer and you face a problem that it was never found before. This means that this problem is specific to what? To the operating system installed on a specific machine. Someone must test it. So that's the only case. Who is responsible for delivering 1,000 PCs to the customer premises? The release management role. Many people call this logistics manager. All right. Who is designing the solution? The architecture of the solution. Right. This is MSF version 3. I told you that in MSF version 4, there are 2 people there because this is a single guy. It's one single person. If you read the books, Microsoft has got great difficulties to find people like this one because these people must know what? business and technology at the same time. They have great difficulties to find people like this. So in MSF version 4, this guy is two different people, right? So this designs. Who is doing project management? At the general level, it's this one. But let's go back and suppose that I have a team of 100 people. 20 developers, 20 testers, 20 user experience, 1 product manager. No, let's put more developers. 40, which means 80. 17, 1, and 1. How organizing? I told you that the maximum number of people I can have in a group are how many? 12. This means that if I have 40 developers, I cannot have 1 in charge. How many should I have? 4. Or I can have a main team and then I can have what? Sub-teams. Right, because I must not break the other rule. So this model can scale up to thousands of people. Actually, I don't have the picture here. I have a picture of the team that built Windows 2000. Do you know how many people were on the team? 4,500. 900 developers, 900, 900, 1,800 testers, 500 here, I don't remember, 4,000 people in total. And they had 450 program management roles. 450. Why 450? If I have 4,000 people and I divide it by 10, this means how many groups? 450 groups. So I need 450 of these people. All right. Other questions from you?
Regarding the proper timing of putting the offer to the customer, you mentioned that the best timing would be after planning the project.
Yes.
Sometimes it happens that they plan the project and then they submit the offer to the customer, but due to pricing or anything like that, the project goes to another customer. In this case, this is not considered as a loss.
Look.
The effort done.
Yes. All right. Let me break it here. All right. The question is, which is the best time to submit an offer? There's a theory that says when you submit an offer to a customer, the cost of the submission is how much? Do you know the number? Who knows it? 10%. What it means, if you want to have zero cost, you make a meeting, you see the solution, and immediately you submit what? An offer. This means that you are where? Here. If you submit an offer here, then you are lost. If you want to make a good offer, you must spend 10% of the total budget of the project. 10%. Because you must be where? Here. So, as early as you submit the offer, the more risk is involved in the project. That's theory. It never changes. Do you remember the data I showed you about the failure rates? They have information about 70,000 projects. 70,000 projects worldwide. And the numbers are very strict. You know, the numbers are killing us. So, you must be here. If you are experts, you can submit the offer here because you know what's going to happen here. Other question?
Why did Microsoft develop and implement this
Yes. Microsoft, there's a good book, I don't have it with me. I can send you the ISBN number. You can find it in Amazon. It was written in 1995. It's called the Microsoft Way. It is written by 2 professors from MIT University. It was the first time that Microsoft allowed people from outside to go inside and to see what's going on. They were using it since 1994. The first reference you can find on the market is 1987. Inside, internally, in Microsoft, they call it the daily cycle. The daily cycle. Why? Because every day, they write code, and in the evening, they test it. Every day, every single day. It's unbelievable. I have worked for Microsoft in Ireland for 6 months. It's unbelievable. Every day, every single day, at 6 o'clock in the evening, the developers give the the code to the testers to test every single day. So Munir, they can send you an email. Actually, if somebody did the presentation, send an email to Munir and we can give you the presentation. No problem. Other questions? I think my time is up.
Take one last question, please.
If you don't have any other question, after the next Alex gonna go, and then we have a break, and then I will go. And after my presentation, there is about 15-minute common question and answer for any of the three of us. So if you think about some more question, you'll have another opportunity to ask Theophanes.
All right, thank you, Theophanes.
Thank you.
All right, so we're all involved in projects and we all trust project management. But is that the case with people high in the organization hierarchy, especially when they have difficulties understanding whether project management is crucial, whether it's an overhead or an asset, and why some companies are more successful in delivering projects than others? On the other hand, we see an increase in project management offices in organizations, but is the PMO enough? And is there anything beyond PMO? Our next topic is about building a project-based organization, and our speaker is an expert in project, program, and project portfolio management. They've got 24 years of experience, of professional experience. He's also a professor at the Geneva University, the International University of Geneva, and the École Supérieure de Commerce Yale. Please welcome with me the VP Marketing and Sponsorship at PMI Switzerland Chapter, Mr. Alexander Matty.
That's for the PMI folks. That's correct. Okay. Similarly to my colleague Theophanes, a couple of common things. The company I'm heading in Switzerland is 3PM, but at the same time, I was one of the co-founders of the PMI Swiss chapter, and since the last 6 years, since 2001, vice president. Again, PM Forum correspondent, which means whatever happens in Switzerland, I report it to this website and a newsletter. And we are jointly, all three of us, just freshly out of the Leadership Institute a couple of months ago. Now I'm going to talk about, very pretentiously maybe, but a little bit about the future. What PMI imply, or what project management implies nowadays is all sorts of development. And there is a sort of a hat which is put on the top of it. And this is when we hit in an organization a state which may be called, let's say, coming from the dark ages, although they were not really dark because a lot of things were built already thousands of years ago, represented by the Babel Tower. And we are heading to the future where a lot of complicated, complex things are built in an incredibly shorter period of time. But old ways of building and contributing and interacting and communicating is not good, is not enough. And this is called the project-based organization, which means from normal and, let's say, step-by-step evolution, we had to switch, or some companies are already switching to something which is a completely new way of doing things, which is the modern, let's say, the modern era of project management. Now, project-based organization is relatively new, but I'm coming to explain it a little bit later. What does it mean? Drawbacks, advantages, different steps, different approaches. Let's start with a couple of definitions. As you can see, the wisdom, the basis of the wisdom, and I had the chance to have a Greek colleague who contributed with this nice slide, coming from Socrates. So let's go through a couple of definitions, but I don't want to kill you because they can be readily found. Projects, I hope you all know. Just to cite the two characteristics which define what a project is, and I guess you are aware of them. One of them is uniqueness. It has never been done before. The second one is temporary. So this is at the basics. We are not looking at sub-projects now. What is being measured for success of the project is all the hard skills. This is where the project is based on time, of scope, time, cost, quality, obviously. And to a certain degree, we talk about risk as well, because this is a reflection of the value. Do we do it? Do we don't do it? And what if something goes wrong or there is an opportunity? At the next level, we find programs. Now, program management is there to handle multiple projects, strategically aligned, but the major thing is the mutual benefit of the execution of the joint execution of these projects. Normally, a program will be initiated in an organization somewhere around a common idea, a market segment, a product line. But there is a lot of things happening. No finite end to a program. There is a higher level baseline, which is not called that time KPI. It's not called, by the way, baseline either. It's the official name is critical success factor. And what is aimed for is benefit. Once a series of projects are executed within a program, what is measured beyond, obviously, the achievement of the different baselines is what does it bring to the enterprise. So it is measured at company level, operational level, or functional level. In other words, program management implies both a little bit of project or a lot of projects, but at the same time understanding how things operate. At the top of the two sits something which is called portfolio management, which is, again, not really a next step of the evolution or complexity of all of that. It's a managerial approach where different projects and programs are selected to execute the company's envisioned future. And this is coming out directly from strategy, which is based on the vision and mission defined for the company. So portfolio management is much more about realization of the vision of the company, where some subsets of the efforts are regarding prioritization, some other ones strategical alignment, but at the same time what is important that programs and projects which are managed by a portfolio are executed under one head. So a portfolio manager normally will, I wouldn't say accidentally, but he will have several of those. It will be one cost center, and if you wish, a company can be considered as a portfolio. But even a subset of a company can have a portfolio. So these are a couple of the basics which I use and very extensively use in the model which has been built for project-based organization. The bottom line of all of that is this has to be mastered. And we know, and we are going to see it through the next slides, that at project we have already a huge advancement. Project level. Program management is relatively new. The most developed in the world, they are not our American colleagues. It's much more in the UK that is happening. But there are a couple of ideas here and there also outside. Portfolio management is a managerial approach which is being imposed now and is relatively new. Some books are already out. Some courses are being formed. Now, let's go a little bit further with definition, a couple of other notions to see what else is implied. As all of these, what was described, are different systems, we have to think about the organization. The name of the PBO is organization. As usual, we will always have somebody at the top who is juggled with different priorities and pieces of work and risk and values and so on. But this represents the human side of, I would say, the complex side of the part of the system which is the thinking part, which is the system which is not designed as a process but rather as a human being or a hierarchy of human beings. Now, before getting further, just by raise of hand, PBO, does it ring any bell to you? PBO, have you heard about? Have you read about PBO? Okay, 2, 3, 4, a little 15, let's say, out of how much, roughly? About 80 people. Okay. Now, if I push a little bit further, PMPs, have you answered the question, the PMPs?
No, I didn't. I forgot.
You forgot to answer the question. I would like to have PMPs. I assume that every PMP is perfectly aware of the organizational structure, so I can go further. Organizational structure, how many PMPs, please? Oh la la. Oh la la. Happy to say, I don't see your...
Give chocolates.
I don't see your little PMP pin. I'm the only one excused. I know. I didn't bring my...
Switch to French.
I have my daughter who put order in my office, and since then I can't find my pin. Okay. So this would represent something you would all know. All PMPs and any other project manager, the bottom part here, this is something which is that one. This is readily described in the PMBOK. We are going to stop for a while, and this would be considered as the agenda of everything which is organizational in the PBO. But beyond organization, we have different other dimensions. I just mentioned earlier the program portfolio dimension, and we are going to talk about the PMO as well. You recognize, probably, all of you, what's functional, but let's go further. Let's go more in detail. Functional organization, the typical thing is that within one functional entity, the project is being executed in a way that the project manager is a hierarchical manager. Easy communication, straight, rapid, people know what they do. Nothing else. For some projects, it's a perfect fit. Matrix organization, on the other side, is something which requires crossing the borders, getting from one department to another, or division. In this case, very often the project manager will not be in the line. Could be, if you talk about a weak matrix. If it's a balanced or strong matrix, we can have dedicated roles. So it gets a little bit more professional. For some project, this is what is the norm. And then we have the third one, the projectized organization, where most of the projects are executed, if they are in a projectized mode, in a way as if it was entirely deriving its income through that. Normally, what does it mean? It means that for some big projects, all the resources are pulled out from the operations, and they do not suffer, what we'll see a little bit later, the inconvenience of having two bosses. Now, without really wanting to enter that, because you know that for some projects, that sort of organizational structure today is considered obsolete. For most of the small projects, it's not a problem. But the problem is that most of the products we need to deliver within an organization, they cross borders, they cross functional borders. So although this used to be the norm for about 40 years in modern project management times, let's say we start thinking about modern project management somewhere after the war, late 40s, early 50s, especially the American Army, they started to produce on a massive scale armament, and then construction started, different telecommunication lines and roads and so on were built in the early 50s. At that time it was still okay, not for the road buildings and the construction, but for some smaller internal projects to work this way. Unfortunately today this is rather an inconvenience. The major disadvantage is what? Is that there is no one single person responsible totally for one product. A bit done here, he mentioned, Stefanis mentioned, product management, a discussion with the client, something is produced, then it's thrown through the fence, somebody else catches this piece of paper if it's not well coordinated, then there is some sort of high-level thinking, defining the infrastructure of the solution, then somebody develops it. Normally it would be another team, then somebody tests it, runs it for a while, then there is maintenance, and every time the silo makes it, in fact, impossible to test it to them. No responsibility is taken. And you know that typical discussion between two team members is happening to the boss to the other peer boss, and then the other one talks to his employees. Tremendous loss of time. So that's not exactly, it doesn't mean that we have to discard it completely, but that's not a fit quite often. The matrix organization, I would say this is the least worst situation since the 60s. It's not really a comfortable situation to be where different team members, they have two bosses. But yet, most of the projects today are executed in this mode. Some statistics say up to 60%, 70% are executed exactly in this mode. Very unstable, but at the same time has a big flexibility, because most of the companies, after all, remain still in a functional organizational way as far as projects are concerned. why this organizational structure is not the most suitable? What is really to be retained is the two bosses. In case of conflict, whose work is going to be done first? But there are some other ones. People coming and going, being withdrawn, leaving. Then who is taking then at the very end, let's say, the laurels away? Who is the guy who is happy that it went done? Or work. What happens if it doesn't work? Who is responsible? There is always a split finger-pointing type of situation if this is not cleared in advance. The one which we are mostly interested in, and you would recognize that coming from the PMBOK, is the last one, which is the project-based organization, because this is where we start to get close to what the project-based organization is. In this case, there is a separate, in here it's not clearly stated because it's all the same, there's a separate entity within which we have only project managers, and all the project managers then are responsible for the execution of projects. So in this case, we have a situation where temporarily everybody who works on a given project does not do any operational work. Predominantly useful for projects where the presence is necessary and the importance is such. Now, having said that we have these three, none of them is to be privileged to the detriment of the other ones. That is, one cannot say that one is better than the other one. One thing is sure, that nothing has been yet invented, and unfortunately PBO will not be an exception to that, but it will show a higher level of maturity. One single organizational way or structure would not be able to replace all the needs or cater for all needs. A couple of words about the hierarchy, the authority given the different organizational structures. Again, for all the people who are knowledgeable about PMBOK, that's not completely new. From projectized to functional, there's more authority on one side when it's to the project manager when it's projectized, and of course much less on the other side. Statistics coming from the project management facts book shows that depending in what organizational structure we are, projects are more likely to be successful. But again, it doesn't mean that extremely, with a lot of effort and with a lot of ardor, everybody should be aiming to be somewhere in here. Again, it depends very much on the profile of the project and the importance. But nevertheless, the numbers, they speak for themselves. Now, what does it mean to go to the right-hand side, to be more and more projectized? It means change within an organization. And what happens if existing relationships, hierarchy, reporting lines are being changed? You see it directly from the figures. Not everybody is happy to do that. Some people who are more structured and predominantly IT or engineering people they will find themselves somewhere here. Somewhere here. Typically research and development, let's say IT is the strongest. This is where we talk about phases and budget and schedule and risk. I would say really natural. That's part of the profession today. But try to do the same thing and go and talk to marketing people or sales people or product managers. I worked in a telecommunication company. I can tell you there was an open war between marketing and product management, because part of it, and IT people. The understanding of what a life cycle, they just didn't want to hear about it. Anything like describing something and sticking to it, for them it was like banning them or sending them to the middle of the desert. For them it was like the end of the road to define something which was like to a promise to do something at a point of time, and then to keep it and compare it and have a document which describes it. It's more artistic. It was all basically, but our client base is very diverse. Let's give them the opportunity to do everything immediately for not too expensive, and you can just design it and we are fine. There was a total disruption between the different organizations. Bottom line is that these people in here resist change. If somebody tries to introduce best practices or a different stage of of development within project management, or even just to change the organizational structure, they will hit, probably depending on the profile, a huge resistance. Now, bottom line or end result of this resistance, but nevertheless the need which is there, that we ended up today with a lot of organizational structures within one company. And I would like to emphasize the fact that when we talk about organizational structures, it's not the organization itself, it's not the company itself which is organized differently. It's for a given project that the structure is not the same. And this is the reflection of it. You can easily find one or two extremely important projects which are executed following the principles of a projectized organization where you have one person responsible for all the staff members, and this, let's say, this dotted line here, which is like that, which is the project coordination A, represents nearly an independent entity, and you would be able just about to lift it, put it straight, and put it as another functional entity temporarily. Whereas some other ones, they are somewhere in between, like in here, you have the project coordination with a couple of members, so you have vertical and horizontal ways of managing project coexisting. So matrix, even functional, can be at the same time there. Now, what are the typical projects which we used for any of those organizational types? Look at functional one. If you install, it's just an example, if you install like a new language or a compilator or something relatively recently, but nobody outside of the development team, eventually the maintenance team would be interested. So if there is a small project which has for aim to introduce it, to buy it, to evaluate it, and to train a couple of people, it would remain extremely local. So functional organizational structure for this project of introducing a new language is perfectly a fit. At the same time, something of a CRM or SAP, ERP introduced, an organizational enterprise resource planning introduced, which cuts across all the finance departments, logistics, sales, and marketing, and purchasing, which probably touches just about everybody. And especially if there's even a human resources module installed, you would need definitely something which is a matrix, probably even a strong matrix. So, but there is a very strong and empowered project manager with a lot of understanding around, a lot of influence on different other functional entities they can draw and work. Now, if, let's say, the company is going for a major split or a major acquisition, something which touches the roots of the company, it may happen that a big chunk of the population, of the working population, will be working only on that. So that type of project would require for very sure, a projectized organization. And only the minimum people will be required to maintain operations, just to have the services running. But for 3 to 6 months, it is possible 75% of the people to content. No new things are being developed for a while, because that's a major thing. Now, this is if we take project by project. But on an average organization would never have one single only. In my experience, if you have 1,000 people in one company, chances are that you'll be running minimum 200 to 300 projects yearly, today, in a, let's say, in a more or less white-collar environment, office, organization. I'm not talking about a huge construction where everybody's organized. Anyway, it's a different type of organization. So the hybrid organizational structure in real life would suppose any project to be covered, because in fact all other three previously mentioned are contained. Now when we talk about the PBO, not PMI, it is not just the next step of evolution. What happens is there is a need to rethink how the whole company is going to interact. So it goes beyond structure. It's a managerial approach. It's a managerial philosophy. It requires a complete reshuffling of the authority, headcounts, reward systems. Organization facing the outside world is not going to happen as it used to be in a normal or a functional organizational system. It's going to be alongside something which is probably a market segment or a product line or something of the sort. In itself, to get there, it's a very huge and complex project. To change an enterprise around from any state, but normally it would be obviously somewhere from, not here, but some of the projects executed in this mode would suppose that the company would have some experience and they would see the difference, they would see the benefits, they would like to go further, they would like to go to that stage here, to a project-based organization. This project in itself would be as important as a merger or acquisition, and it can go on for 2 years. But at the very end, we will end up with something which will be described in the next slides. Now, what are the critical success factors? And I'm drawing here from the writings and experience of, unfortunately today we only have a handful of authors, and real and recognized authors worldwide, who write and worked really in project-based organization. But look at the first time, the competency, the project management competency, the knowledge, the maturity of project management within an organization. Important to be at a much higher level. For those of you who have heard about OPM3, which is not the stage but a continuous model, but you can even take the stage model very close to CMI. Dr. Kurtzner defined it. The minimum would be 18% to 20%, so the first stage, in order to be able to say that you are already on the ladder of some sort of maturity. In order to pretend that something is feasible and the project-based organization is pointing on the horizon, probably the mark of 50% has to be crossed. So 2 is minimum. Probably you have to be on a maturity of 3 out of 5. Next one is the principle of management by objectives. We are going to see the idea, the notion is out there for a couple of years. The reward system, I'm not going to touch more, just to mention the fact that the whole reward system has to be overhauled, and the money from the beginning of the year is not attributed based on operations or on functions, but is linked to performance and outperformance and meeting client needs and client objectives. And the project management office is one of the most important elements. There needs to be an entity which is not only the thinking part of the organization, but the driving part, the motor, even later. In this case, the project management office takes on another role. It's not going to be just a project office or a project management office. It has to be some sort of center of excellence or strategic project office or the next generation project office. In order to fulfill that, you need an entity which can stand up, I wouldn't say against, but stand up for the management, but unfortunately very often against the understanding and the willingness of the top management in any organization. It doesn't come cheap. Let's say, normally VPs would not wake up one day and say, you know what, fancy to me to be PBO, let's go and spend 2 years on transforming the organization. It requires major lobbying and a lot of education, a lot of excellence from the part of the people who are behind these ideas. But in a couple of cases it worked and it's becoming stronger and stronger. Why not to participate in that? The first critical success factor was, as I mentioned, the maturity. Again, this is the model of Dr. Kurtzner. It's a 5-stage model where you can see project managers, professionals can go, let's say, from 1 to 5. If the maturity is at the early stages, somewhere here, there is much bigger probability, and this one, the early part corresponds to that one here. The probability of failure is much higher. The higher the maturity of the project managers, of the entire professional corps within the organization, the higher the probability that projects will be successfully executed. So there is, statistically speaking, a correlation between maturity and success, which is just a basic. This is not enough, but if this is not there, one cannot even start. So there is a sort of a preparational work before hitting the road of PBO. Management by objective, introduced in the 60s by Peter Drucker, or 54. At the beginning, it was exclusively aiming operations, functional organizations. Although they were keep continuing to be functionally organized, there was the recognition that if there is a clear set objective and if there is the reaching of it, if there is a coincidence between the motivation of the organization and the people who are in charge of executing some of the work they have to do, there's a much bigger chance of success. Instead of just threatening or forcing, aligning the interest of the two, or as the two interested parties, allowed operations to improve tremendously. Now, built on that, when project management started to pick up in the 60s and in the 70s, when we started to go from only quantitative management, masses being produced, masses of products, to increase quality in the 60s, then increase diversity in the 70s, then personalization in the 90s, and then we are in the totally freed up world of I want something quickly, at good quality, completely personalized, in an extremely fresh or agile manner. Project management took on the same principle or used exactly the same principle, and I would say that scope management and definition of everything from the scope statement down to a WBS is nothing more than breaking down the objectives and then making just much small executable pieces. So it has been entirely incorporated in one word. Project management office came into the picture of the economy, let's say in the 90s, 95. It got extremely popular. Today, we call them first generation PMOs. Back then, most of the PMOs were attached to the hierarchy of an organization. There was somebody sitting sometimes at a higher level, let's say headquarter level, very often at the VP level. Most of the PMOs started in the US, attached to IT organizations. Sometimes they were not called PMOs, and they could even mean project management or program management office. Sometimes they were just called project management offices. For about 5 to 7 years, there was a sort of going up of interest and creating more and more of them. And somewhere around 2001, something very bizarre happened. Some of them, they got stuck to the organization on a level where they were introduced, where people were hired. And then there was the downturn in 2001, sort of an economical recession. They were not attached directly, only indirectly, in the second line to external projects. So managers who needed to save, let's say, headcount and money, they found the scapegoats. That was the easiest population to be either sacked or just put down to some sort of operations because they could not prove their usefulness. Whereas at the moment of time, they were extremely important. The reason for that, it was that simply, as some of the big projects moved out of under the field, typically the year 2000 created very often a PMO, which was dedicated only to the coordination, or some other projects, complex projects were done, they could not reinsert themselves as quickly as one could imagine. They could not find some sort of usefulness. They were sort of free electrons within the organization. Obviously, they were finding something to do, but when it comes to saving big money, but that was normally the case with people being PMO managers, a very easy target. What today is being developed, regardless now of how easy and or complicated the definition is, because PMO remains a very abstract notion in the sense of what is the exact definition, what are the services, what is being offered, who is behind, what is the evolution, what is the maturity of a PMO, what is the name of it. The diversity is huge. Nevertheless, there is a general tendency to introduce something which is called the next generation PMO, promoted by a friend of ours and a gentleman who is going to be represented on Munir's slide from Cincinnati, Jack Dugo, and he's talking about a value generated system where you have the whole organization producing value as services or goods go through it. So from raw material, something which comes out and then becomes a value-added service or product. And in this case, the PMO is around that process. The PMO is not attached to the hierarchy, but is attached to the execution of this one only program or complex project. And after once it's finished, it is reattaching itself to, let's say, to the organizational entity, or finding another occupation without, let's say, sucking the resources from the hierarchy. They go back to the pool where they are most useful. So there is a completely new approach of, let's say, homing these people, and there's a new approach to make them work and put them collaborate. They do not participate in the hierarchy by the sheer fact that they are nominated or they are hired to remain. So the next generation PMO is something which suits our purposes, and in a project-based organization we need a completely different way of, let's say, homing and occupying the people who are going to be with the PMO. But let's go a little bit further. What I was mentioning to you, first generation PMO, corresponded to more or less that, the lower part of the system. We had projects, we had programs which were executed. The PMO in this case, for the time being, do not look at the governance system as a government, look at it simply as a set of processes, some tools, some techniques, some templates, and so on. So the PMO's role was, on one side, once work was initiated from higher levels, just to supply some clarity, to help with templates, to give some processes, eventually some coaching. The work was then executed somewhere here by the different project managers or program managers, and then based on the execution or after the execution, it was all gathered, the tracking data or the finishing data, consolidated more or less in a manual way, sometimes with obviously the PMISs, Project Management Information System. It was given then back in a format to management. Sometimes easily absorbed, sometimes a little bit harder. So there was a disconnect between the strategical management, and only that part existed. Now, in the new paradigm, what came into the picture is the PMO, which has to read what is the strategy of an organization, translate that, derive from the strategy enough knowledge and support so that participates in the definition of the programs and portfolios. At this level, when there is the gathering of the data, helps to redefine or retarget the strategy. So participates without deciding, just being there and facilitating, being a mentor. The bottom line here is that the results which are caused at that level and that which are dependent on enablers, they will influence the overall march of the organization. In the PBO world, one company called the Business Management Consultant defined 3 major building blocks: the organizational support, the people, and let's say the processes, as you can see there. 3 important things to be attacked before we go a little bit further. Now, behind any one of them, we can expand. Organizational support means understanding the management of upper management, linked to strategy, helping them to define or to derive from strategy, which is a longer plan, some initiatives, and to be able to help some other managers at a different level when there is some quicker change or intermediate change to adapt to the newer situation. And we are going to see in the next slide what does it mean, the 2 different strategies. This is more like a classical thing: principles, methods, tools, techniques, processes, and so on. And what remains huge is the people, is the professional level. Vital. And I'm not going through all of these, but just to let you know, in order to be in control, in order the PMO to manage, there's so many things to be created. That would be, let's say, the high-level WBS of a project, which is called put in place a PBO in an organization. A lot of things should be clarified, communicated. People should be educated, professional people in project and program management skills, and so on. As you can see, then there is quite a number of steps. Again, what we arrive at is, in this case, is an example a project-based organization built with PIA systems. Every project in this case in a PBO will be run as a small independent company. So every project, complex project manager, program manager, will appear as a CEO temporarily and will be accountable for success, for rewards, for education, for reporting, for absolutely everything, but in a coordinated way. The model which is presented here summarizes most of the things we mentioned. One thing which should remain obviously is that we have a number of projects being executed, so that the project coordination in here, which delivers the different products which are important for the running of the company, it should continue. What comes into the picture in plus, and project coordination is basically resources, it's the use of machines, the use of the people, and the incorporation of the different products at the right time within the organizational structure of the company. That's why we have, in here we expect values, so it has to be delivered. And here we think and create values. Now, there is something which cuts across all of that, the whole organization, from inception to maintenance again. And this is the project baton in the middle. This is something which is, let's say, it's called program management because it's about benefit delivery. The project management is more about use of the shared resources. The corporate strategy or the deliberate strategy, which is defined by the CEOs and the VPs, from where there will be derived a series of programs and projects. They need to be coordinated. This role here becomes very important. This is a portfolio management role. The business strategy, which is much more linked to one business entity, where, let's say, one entity, one organizational substructure is developing for a shorter period of time, their own plan will be linked to what is the project management, and the two will, of course, draw on the same resources. They will need to be coordinated. In order the PBO to work, this one on its own has to be already working. And this is all about selecting the right projects, the right programs. Program management needs to be improved and in place, which means benefit delivery, defining why we launch a series of interdependent projects. From inception to putting it in operation and maintenance, it has to be approved. Plus, everything around multiple project management, shared resources, has to be coordinated. And these three things together will contribute to something which will allow a PBO to be more operational. In this case, the functions will remain only support services. The most important thing is on the client segment which is being served. A couple of positive things. An organization which is functioning on the model or following the model of being organized by project is adaptive, is quick, it's very organic, very volatile at the same time. Yes, we are going to see that. It allows to be reorganized. The organization will reinvent itself around the then important needs, which may change after 6 months or 1 year. Although there is a long-term deliberate strategy, if there is something which is a business strategy, shorter, coming from an opportunity or a threat from the market, which is a deviation from the long-term delivery strategy, will be incorporated. The programs will be managed in a way so they are not bumped out, they are not eating resources from another project. So it appears to be like a solution, and very often it is. The emergent properties or emergent strategies, what I just mentioned, will be taken into account. Different skills and knowledge sets will be used, very heavily based on working differently and not just executing. It's not a top-down structure, it's very much a bottom-up, but based on knowledge. And of course there will be responsibility and the reward attached to it in both directions. Now, the weakness is that after all, if a company has a long-term strategy, has a number of people who are okay providing services to this horizontal world, they still have a long-term idea. And for them, everything looks like a disruption. And some of these big challenges or these big client segment-oriented programs, they may not work exactly in the same direction or in parallel in what let's say the VPs and the CEO would like the company to go. So it is perceived obviously as not a threat because in this case they do not have the major power. It will be conceived as something hard to, let's say, maintain control on. And beside the fact that there will be regular reporting, there will be a sort of a disconnect from the operational people. It's much more this transversal management who is taking care of the successes and the failures. Not a totally positive solution, especially if there are some strong minds still wanting to operate the whole system with a top-down approach. So this is all I want to tell you. It's extremely short and we can just bring up a couple of ideas, but I open the floor for a couple of questions alongside the skills of the people and the PMO, which is an organizational entity. The three building blocks: organization, people, and skills. Building blocks of PBOs.
Question?
This is considered like BMC contractor, which is we call it project program management contractor consultant. Because I saw most of what you put advantage and disadvantage similar to existing now with the market. And one of the things I noticed in number 31, page number 31 or slide 31, you consider the corporate part of the BMO or the BMC, which is many company now, large company, they didn't include. They define the scope and they define the strategy and they give it to them on everything. They hire them at stage 2 or stage 3 from the project cycle to execute the project.
Let's say in this case, it's not a question of hiring after. Sometimes people can remain in place, but the way management is being done is different. I put it very simplistically, headcount and budget is not attributed yearly. This is the most visible. It's not a question you determine something and then you look for a fit. Who can do that because this is my yearly budget? It's completely different. You depict the future, you subdivide it, you see what you'd like to do, and then because the person who has this vision, and this is, after all, again, the management of the organization, say, okay, in order to realize that, we need not a 1-year tracking, it's not a calendar year, for fiscal years, and you will pay a good consultant to somehow make this yearly looking like, but you will work on the horizontal. And then you will be, whoever is deciding, is in charge, and then naturally unfolds from there on, from this definition, divides pieces of work into programs, some projects, and everybody is working, is being organized alongside this horizontal line, which in this case is this one, programs which are projects. Now this is, that was too quick. I stopped the machine.
Let me take a track at this as well. First, before that, how many people are from project management, construction background, engineering? How does this relate? The first part of your question is how does it relate to PMC? Is that related at all? Okay, because the PMC is a program management consultant. Is basically because you don't have enough people in-house in the company, maybe in the client, to manage project. You hire a consultancy or an organization outside to support you to handle the project for basically to handle major project for us or to help us with multiple projects. This is more of an internal model. How would the organization look at managing its project and the approach they use to manage the project internally instead of, and it doesn't 100% relate to having somebody else helping you manage the project because you don't have enough resources inside.
Yeah, I would just repeating it. The whole model described here is not subdividing between external and internal people. It's how within inside you look at the work. And there was no mention whatsoever about subcontracting.
Okay. Let's take one more question and then we have plenty of time later as well. We have another 15 minutes, as I mentioned, after my presentation. You can post it to on your bus.
Okay. My question is, thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. With regard to PMO, project-based organization, PBO, do you have any success story of where it has been implemented? But my personal opinion is that for organization which is functional driven, to transform into a project-based organization will be a humongous task and will not gain acceptance.
There are some, I would not be allowed to immediately talk about the names because it's being done now. And some of our colleagues you mentioned, you can see the names down there, who are working on some of these models, implementing some of these models. Let's tell you like that it's happening right now with a major bank in Australia. The other thing is, if it doesn't come from within the company, you can forget it. This is not a service a consultant can go, knock at the door and say, I can help you transform your company. This is a long-term maturity. Within the organization, they realize that after all, it's not a fit, and they have to want it. If there is any support in this case, it has to be minimum CEO, including the whole board. And if there is no total adherence to that, can you imagine they're all losing completely the status? If they do not being just knocked to the side, in other words, they to become the program managers, forget it. They will fight to death, or they will be fired, or they quit. So that's absolutely impossible. Success is not coming by somebody surveys and it happens. Somebody needs really to want it. An organizational change. It's a change management project at the same time, but based on PBO principles. They are not very numerous, I have to admit. As I mentioned you, the word is out for a couple of years, but consulting and more intense work, even at university level, thinking and implementation within companies is happening in the last 24 months. There are some successes from previous years, and they are being just rethought and relabeled, so because somebody realized that they are a fit for the model, and that allows to have a basis for the theory. But it's not a massive, let's say, number which is going to figure at the end of the year. I don't know whose consultants page. It's a couple of companies, and it should be relatively big company.
I think just to share a local example, I represent Dundee, and we are building these Palm Islands and Bird Islands and so on. We are using the project-based organization methodology, where each one of these businesses is a project. The top guy is either called the CEO or managing director, depending on the size of the project. They build the project and they move on. Then the project is handed over to another company called Technip Asset Management. So it is actually
Now, what I haven't mentioned, you're absolutely right, and I'm sorry, I should have clarified that. Construction companies, some consultancies, the filmmaking industry forever work on this principle. There's no construction, there's nobody who works on perceived salary. But look, think about a film or a theater, or somebody who's traveling. If there's no production, people are not going to pay the paycheck. They're united, it can cost 150 million, where a project can only cost 200,000. It's all based on the same principle. Now, if it is united and it's a long-term vision to work this way, like in the case of the different palms and islands and the road, then you have a company. If it's a standalone, it's very hard because you don't put this project-based over. It just exists, it's there, but who cares about the category? Because even before it was like that. We are talking PBO as a next stage of evolution where some companies will have to completely reorganize their way of being. But the important thing is this, the dividing line. The companies being based on PBO, they derive the majority of their incomes from projects. They earn money through that. And being organized like that earns them more money than not being organized. Thank you very much. I suggest yes to spare the questions for later. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander. And now we're going to take a quick coffee break, and please can all be back in the room at 15 to 7. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed your extended coffee break. So we move on to our third presentation tonight. Now we all know the global concept that knowledge is power. So how about knowledge acted upon is power? And when we talk about knowledge, are we talking about knowledge for individuals or communities? On closing the gap between knowledge and acted upon knowledge, we have with us today Mr. Munir Ajam, who is a project management expert with 20 years of professional experience. He is heavily involved with PMI at a regional and global level. He's the CEO of SUKAD, one of Dubai Knowledge Village leading business partners in training and consultancy, with clients such as Aramex, Dubai Holding, SABIC, and many others. Please welcome with me Mr. Munir Ajam.
I usually like to speak without a microphone, but I lost my voice yesterday, so I have to use a microphone. First, I must say thank you. Being co-sponsor of this event, I must say thank you to Hassan for helping organize this event and taking a lead. And we also have Dr. Ayub with us. He's hiding in the audience, so you'll get to meet him later, for taking the leadership roles and promoting promoting knowledge, which is my presentation is quite complementary to what Dubai Knowledge Village is all about. But he will be talking about Knowledge Village. I will talk about knowledge in general. So I must say thank you to Dr. Ayub as well for hosting the event, and also about the news that we're going to talk about after my presentation. Before I start, just make it on my presentation, I'd like to make a couple of personal notes. How many people have birthday today? I know at least if one person was in my class last week. I got an email or some announcement, those things on the internet come up that his birthday is today. I saw him here today. No? Okay. Anybody else birthday today? No? On a personal note, Alex, Tifanis, and I have been camping in my house over the last 3 days of working. And what we discovered is between the three of us and my wife, almost have our birthdays within a week of each other. Okay? I start on March 25, so remember this. You have to write this. Can I give you a test later? My wife and Tifanis share the same birthday, which is March 31st. And Alex, the chocolate man, is on April Fool's Day. And my anniversary is on April 2nd, so within 7 days, all these events. I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to be able to help organize another event. This will be our third event that we've done in partnership with some company in the region here. Obviously, Dubai Knowledge Village. Our partnership with them will go a long time. Our offices are down the street from here, and we are partners. And we are, I will have a couple of slides at the end about SUKAD, so we'll make sure that we continue with the tradition that the presentation will be technical presentation, things of value to you, and minimal commercial or marketing slide. So my presentation will be different than my colleagues, okay, because I'm not as smart as they are, so I'm going to have to make you to talk more than I would probably, I don't know, especially with losing my voice. Because my presentation is more personal, dealing with soft skills that are, some of you might say, how does that relate to project management? And as you would see, by coincidence, we did not see each other's slides before. Some of the stuff we'll talk about is actually linked in one way or another to the other presentation. So this will be more of a soft organizational presentation that deal with something that we all take for granted, which is knowledge. And we are in Knowledge Village. What does it mean? What is all that to mean to us? So I'm going to have to be quizzing you today, so we're going to make it more interactive. I hope your voice is better than mine, so speak louder so others can hear you. Again, some of you have known me. I've known many of you as well over the years. I am the co-founder and CEO of SUKAD. I'm also a graduate of the PMI Leadership Institute Masterclass with these two gentlemen. This is actually where I met Tifanis. Alex and I go back to another PMI conference for about 4 years ago. I'm also the PM Forum correspondent for the UAE, and PM Forum is a web portal promoting project management and dealing with project management, and it has a lot of people like us that from all over the world writing to about project management in all parts of the world, and many of its advisors are actually quite seniors, and at least 2 of them are ex-PMI chairman, and few of them are PMI fellow, which is the highest honor that a PMI member could ever have. I'm also, we're going to talk about later, I'm helping with many of you here in the room co-found an association for project and process management in the region. And we are very proud of that. And hopefully we'll have a chance to spend about an hour after my presentation and Dr. Ayub's presentation to talk about that, to listen to you. You can listen to us, we can talk and share ideas. How can we move the profession into the future in our knowledge economy in our area and the region. And this could be a major leadership role for all of us and to promote something we're all proud of and our careers relating to project management. So my discussion, if I go to my presentation, really talk about knowledge and action. And basically, how do we close the gap, if there is such a thing, between knowledge and what I call acted upon knowledge. This is my own term I came up with because I could not come up with any better term. But the idea in here is what is knowledge and the importance of knowledge, and is knowledge enough or something is missing. And the idea of knowledge is power. This is a term that goes back hundreds of years. Is it power? And what does it mean when we say knowledge is power? So this is where I will be able to come back to you and ask you questions. So we talk about knowledge. Knowledge is power. Knowledge and actions as it relate to action. And how do we close the gap in this case? And obviously I'm assuming, or my presentation is about to say that there is a gap between knowledge and action. So if you would agree with me as I go through the presentation, then the question, how do we close that gap? And you can take this presentation being a personal level, or you can also take it if you are a manager or senior manager in your own organization. So I would appreciate as you sit in this room today, look and reflect on both sides. Reflect on the personal side of what we're going to talk about, and also reflect on your organization. Whether it is not for profit, something you are volunteering for, or something that you earn your living from and what you take your home pay at the end of the day. So reflect on both of these aspects, and I think you will get more out of this than that will be presented. Obviously, I'm not an expert on the subject. As I can say, these guys are probably smarter than I am. So I will be posing a lot of questions and challenge you to think about some of the concepts we present. So it's more of things for us to think about and to take home. And not necessarily I'm going to come and give you a recipe for you can go home and cook it tomorrow. Let's start with a couple of slides on definition. What do we mean by knowledge? And it's hard to see down below, but one of the dictionaries define knowledge as the fact or condition of knowing something with familiarity. That means we know something and we know we are familiar with. Now, that comes as being aware of something. It is about having information or being learned. It is about the sum of what we know. Now, as we go to more than the individual knowledge, then it is the sum of what we know. It's a branch of learning. Okay, so knowledge is a branch of learning. And at the end, we can say is gain. How do we gain knowledge? Through experience, through association with others, through colleagues, learning from the school of life. And that's how we gain knowledge. So, knowledge is what is or can be known, by an individual or mankind. Obviously, the big spectrum between the individual and mankind, we can shrink it down to mankind to talk about maybe our group, maybe our family, maybe our organization, maybe our community, maybe our country. So you can define the humankind in this case for whatever you think that interests you the most. Are you more concerned today in your life with your own family, immediate family, or more concerned with the community? And how does that relate? And there not necessarily there should be a contradiction between the two. And hopefully there is no contradiction. So define this as you wish. So knowledge is power. Now I've heard this term for a long time, but I never knew where it came from. We have an IT expert over here that basically lived with the internet. And we discovered that basically, because he used the same quotation in another presentation, that this came as old as 1597 from a gentleman called Sir Francis Bacon. So, what does this mean to you? Anyone? When we talk about knowledge is power, What bells ring in your mind? Anyone? Who can speak the loudest? No one? Ahmed.
I think it's not valid anymore.
It's not valid anymore.
Yeah.
Good. Why?
Because there is a lot of knowledge, but people they cannot employ it.
Okay.
And it's not in power anymore. So I did change it. You were saying know-how is power.
So say it again.
Know-how
Know-how.
is the power.
So the know-how is the power.
Yeah, nowadays,
Okay.
of this century.
How different is know-how from knowledge? Anyone want to challenge him? Please.
Knowledge is power. I admit it, and I try my best to learn as much as I can.
Okay.
I started as a design engineer,
Okay.
and with the knowledge that I got from my colleagues in the company, I have been promoted twice, and I can see that knowledge is power.
Okay.
You know more, you grow more, and you climb the ladder more.
Okay. There are two definitions for knowledge is power in my view. You just got one of them. Anyone else? Please, in the back.
I think power is the rate of doing work.
The power is the rate.
Rate of doing work.
Okay.
So when we have knowledge, we can increase our rate of doing work. We can produce more. We can be more productive. We can increase our efficiency. We can do more in less amount of time.
In that case, are you talking about knowledge or acted upon knowledge? Okay. So you guys are already defining my presentation. So in that case, if I take that, and what do we mean when we say knowledge is power? I'm going to take this blank for a second to share with you the common thinking around the word. When we talk about knowledge is power, there are two definitions for it. And I'm talking about the definition, more like actually maybe not definition, maybe two practices of knowledge is power. One is, let's start with the bad one first, being selfish. What does it mean? It means knowledge is power. If I have knowledge, then my job is to hide it from you. Because if I hide it from you, I have power over you. Regardless how small or big that information is, if you know, and if you get into the definition of powers and some of those things, if you know, I have knowledge about something, then what's going to happen? You're going to try, and you are interested in that knowledge, obviously. You're going to try to do anything possible to see if I can gain that information from me. And if I'm selfish, I'm going to do everything in my power to manipulate you to do whatever I want to do, possibly, because I'm handling that stick at the end with the carrot that there is something out there, and guess what? Which I might never share it with you. Why? Because I'm afraid for my job. Why? Because if I teach you something or share with you what I know, then you are equal to me. Then you might be able to use it somehow, good or bad, to gain power over me. So what do? We do the opposite of the colleague of the gentleman here. We hide it. Why should we train him? I have a lot of friends, and I know they basically have been burned before. Said, I trained someone, and they took my position. But being in training, and one of the best characteristics of a trainer is basically, or a teacher, is being a parent. And that word meaning what? Not being afraid of your pupil or your student or your child to grow to be better than you are. So if that is something we can accept, and if we trust ourselves and trust our ability and trust our intelligence, that if I can share the knowledge with you, that means I'm also learning something. Because if I share knowledge with you, you probably share knowledge with me. And no one on earth is an expert in everything. So if I don't share with you, you're not going to share with me. You don't learn as much, it's true, but I don't learn as much either. And therefore, we all stagnate, or we don't go as far as we would like to be. So in that perspective, if we think about knowledge from the selfish perspective, we're not going to get anywhere fast. But if we believe that power is to be shared, power is for knowledge, power is we all benefit from. If I can help you, I help myself. So there is a bit of selfishness even on the good side. then we might be able to go further. A friend shared with me one time, he said, Munir, and we were in a course actually on project management. And when we talk about knowledge sharing, and what he said, let's take a simple example. If I have a dirham and you have one, we're equal, right? How about if I give you mine, or you take mine away from me? What happened? You have two, I have nothing. That means what? Did I win or lose? I lost. I lost a dirham. How about if I take your dirham away? I win a dirham, you lose. Now the question is, obviously when it comes to money, I have to give you or you give me, whatever the case might be. But let's shift it to knowledge. How about if I have an idea? And you have an idea. I share mine with you. You then share yours with me. What happened? I'm still with one idea, and you now have two. And if this happened once, twice, 3 times, I'm not stupid after all. I'm going to one day realize that somebody is trying to steal my ideas, and I'll stop sharing. But if I share my idea, and you share yours, how many ideas now we have each? That's simple mathematics. But is that real life? My friend T. Finance will say in business 1 + 1 does not equal 2. It's typically 3, 4, 5, or 10. Because if we are willing to listen and to share with an open mind, we can build on these ideas. As a minimum, we will have each 2 ideas as a minimum, and then we can get more ideas. So if we say that, what is knowledge is power? Is it about personal power? Is it about how big is our brain that you need a crane to lift it? Some of you in construction will probably have met some people, they think their brain is heavier than the equipment they work with. How about, is it knowledge for the sake of knowledge? I've met some people who knows almost something about everything. That's good. But basically, if you do not want to get bored at all, make sure you are always hanging around those people. Because whatever you encounter, you know they will have something to say about it. So you never go down. But what's the use of it? Okay. I could have tons of information. I can read hundreds of books. At the end of the day, what? This intellectual property or this intellect, if not used for something, it's useless. Serving no purpose except for social discussion and possibly waste of time. Or is it about sharing and learning? We go to the book of knowledge. We go to people to share, to learn. A challenge for us when it comes to knowledge is basically the concept creating and sharing knowledge are activities that can neither be supervised nor forced actually out of people. They happen only when people cooperate willingly. I can never force anyone to share an idea. Yes, they might share an idea, but they might give you the diluted version. So basically we give the impression that we share. But in reality, we are not. So it is a challenge. And we need to learn how to deal with that. So again, is knowledge about, I don't know if anybody has seen this quotation before. Society is knowledge, and knowledge is power. Or is it the reverse of that? We can reverse it. If we say knowledge is power, then is it society knowledge? Again, like mankind, define society as any way you wish. Is it your own community, home, village, town, city, country, school? The job? What is it to you? Okay? So if that's the case, we go to the next side and say, what do we mean by society is knowledge? What does it mean to us? Anyone? Does it mean something to you?
You learn from the society.
Okay. We learn from society. Obviously, we learn every day. The contribution of society members, basically. Anyone else?
Collective problem solving.
Connected problem solving. Why for? Why? Why do we problem solve? Why do we contribute to each other?
To make your life easier.
Ah, I don't like to use that one. Alas, you lost your bonus for the night.
Actually, you think in only one point of view. We would not think about the what's around or something in a different angle. So society comes in a different angle.
Isn't that dictatorship? I'm sorry, I'm trying to create some discussion. Yes, I mean, one point of view is a good thing, but is it really what we want? Yes, common objective maybe. That's what we're looking for. So we can work toward a common objective. Because one point of view, that means we are all duplicate of each other. Okay? And this is one of the, actually, if we sidetrack for a second, one of the problems we see in the organization is bosses want their employees to say yes, 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 to look after them and to look like them. Okay? It doesn't have to be, because if everybody is one-track mind, we don't go anywhere. I know you didn't say that, but I'm trying to pick on somebody usually. What do we mean by society is knowledge? Contribution. How can we contribute together? How can we learn to work together? How can we learn to improve our common community instead of just focusing on what's in it for me? Because what's in it for me is the previous definition of knowledge is power, which is I have power over you, which is a selfish definition. Because I'm looking after my interests. And yes, if I look after my interests, I gain some stuff, of course. There are a lot of people in the world that are multi-billionaires and millionaires, and they only think about themselves and maybe the immediate family or community around them, and who cares about anybody else? But at the end of the day, that's not what society will be needing to get strong. So in my way, when I talk about society is knowledge, the idea in here, how can I make my society, how can I help contribute to my society, how can I help to commute to my community and help my community to become stronger? And I will talk a little bit about a quotation from a book many of you probably have read or heard of at least, that is from right where we are right now. So, what do we mean by society's knowledge? How is it different from the individual knowledge? Can we say that individual knowledge is more self-driven, somewhat personal focus? Would you? How many people would agree with that sentence? Very few. Okay? So, what would you say otherwise for those who disagree with that statement? What is individual knowledge to you? Anyone that has the courage to go up and be picked on? No? Okay, I'll go on. So, the question is, again, one more time, individual knowledge, is it more self-driven or somewhat personal focused? Obviously, some agree, some don't agree. Perfectly normal. How about society knowledge? Is it for the common good? Okay, so that's more inclusive. Then, is knowledge enough? Try to make the transition into the knowing-doing gap, into knowledge in action. Is knowledge enough? And some people already said that we have to act upon it. We have to action the knowledge. Some people use the word know-how, possibly to mean that it's basically the action that we take on knowledge. So, I guess we already, some of us at least, agree that knowledge for the sake of knowledge is not enough. Good conversation piece, but it's not enough. Even for the person who has a lot of that knowledge. Can we agree that knowledge to benefit us, it requires action upon that we know? Sounds like many of us do. Does that mean the actions that we take are for the benefit of our society? Okay? In other words, knowledge is power, is, in my definition, would be the knowledge of the society that is truly a power. At least for the community. Let's shift topic a little bit. Have you experienced this? How many people have you experienced the first one? In your operation, in your organization, in your life? That sounds great, but there's always a but, right? What does that mean when we say but?
Conflict of interest.
I think this is the stupidest idea I've ever heard, but I'm just too nice. I cannot tell you this until I'm probably away and I can throw some rocks at you, right? In your face, I won't dare to say it, but I will say it to everybody else in the company. Okay. How about yet another idea?
Who cares?
Yeah, that means flavor of the month. Management just came up with another idea to waste our time and to talk and to waste time, and to talk, and to waste time. Have meetings, brainstorming session, and just another idea. Basically, what this is telling us is these are indication of past failures. What does that mean? That means as an organization, it have tried a lot of stuff, or have talked about a lot of stuff, or every year there's truly a new idea that somebody bring it up, we talk about, we encourage people, we have these off-site meetings, we have team building session. At the end of the day, what happened? We go back to our offices, we forget about it. Great weekend. Right? And we forget about it. Then people get sick and tired of that. Whenever they hear a new management idea, who cares? Okay? It's not going to change anything. It's going to be as usual a month from now. Back to usual. So what do? So even the believers start to fight the ideas. And that basically, some people call that the cycle of doom. Because you go from worse to worse to worse. Then next, Tifanis talked about this indirectly. And again, I didn't know if we shared some of the stuff. Actually, this came from one of his old slides. We know why project failed. Most of us who work in project management and experience failure in project management, we know why they fail. So, how to prevent the failure? So we have knowledge. Sorry?
By knowing the reasons.
We know the reason. So what? How many organizations do lessons learned? We have meetings after, even PMI like to have a very nice word for it called post-mortem, after death. How do you like that? European friend don't like this. Okay, only the American talk about post-mortem to talk about lessons learned. Some of the stuff I'm talking about is addressed in this book that was published a few years ago, not too long ago, it's in the 2000, that's talked about the knowing-doing gap. That means we know a lot, unfortunately we don't do enough. We know why project fails, but we don't put the solutions in place. So, what the studies, this two authors from, I believe, Stanford University, and this was published by the Harvard Business, is basically they found a lot of phenomena in organization. Most organizations have no problem with ideas. They have problem implementing ideas. So knowledge is not the problem. We are very knowledgeable. We've read a lot of books. We've gone through the best schools probably. We learn from some great people that we work with. But at the end of the day, we probably hired money consultant, but at the end of the day, some knowledge, whatever report we have, is sitting in a closet somewhere, or nowadays with the computer technology, it's somewhere in a file directory on the computer. It probably was the CD had been corrupted by now. So it's a major challenge, but these people found out that there is a major challenge in facing organization and they want to study it. And when they study this organization, they come up with this book, and basically they discover that knowledge and learning is not the problem at all. A lot of organizations have significant amount of knowledge in-house and learning that just don't know how to apply properly. So some of the symptoms, some of the stuff that is addressed is, and I put them in the form of question, do we know too much and do too little? Does hollow talk that means talk big and stuff like this, inhibit our action? So basically, we talk, we don't act much. How many Lebanese are in the room? Nobody?
Palestinian Lebanese.
I cannot say my joke then. There was a joke and not a joke. I don't know if it is true or not, but we hear this. That a long time ago, there was a discussion that Dubai Internet City, which is right next door, was supposed to be in Lebanon. Because, Lebanese, we are very smart, right? And somebody, I think, mentioned this in front of His Highness. He said, this is supposed to be in Lebanon because a lot of the IT people in Dubai are IT. Are Lebanese origin or something like this that work with companies. He said, yes, Lebanese talk so much, but we do. So, and this was a leader, I'm not going to mention the Lebanese leader who said that. This was one of the top leaders in Lebanon who said that. And basically, again, I cannot confirm this or not, that's why I'm not going to mention the name. But at least said, yes, they're supposed to be there, but we talk about it, and what? We couldn't even get a permit. So it's done here. And we can see how flourished Dubai Internet City and Media City and even Knowledge Villages. We can't even find a place sometimes because there's so much people want to come here. Do we understand the impressive word that we use sometimes? And this is one of the biggest challenge what they found in the book is a lot of organization, a lot of management talk big. Maybe somebody know how to look up some nice word in the dictionary so they make them sound more impressive. But the question, do we really know what they mean? When we go talk to our people and start providing these great ideas, do we understand them? And often we don't. Do we have unhealthy internal competition that could be destructive? Measurement system, right? Many people talk about balanced scorecards, KPIs, go. What happened? We don't know how to use them. Okay, often enough. Or what do? We search for the most difficult measure that we can put, and we put it there. Nobody understands what they mean. Another symptom, meeting for the sake of meeting. Well, that about wraps it up. The meeting is over. Okay, unless, of course, someone wanted to cover what was on the agenda. So how do we shift into action? If we accept that is a problem, if we accept there are issues like this, how can we shift into action? I'll start with the book that probably some of you have read, Ru'yati, My Vision, from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed. And on one of the pages, I think page 35 if I'm not mistaken, this is loose translation because in Arabic obviously, the book, and he talked about the vision. And basically the statement as I translated it, one principle and an essential characteristic of a vision. Because a lot of people talk about visions and mission and strategy. I have not met a company that doesn't have one. Okay? The essential, one principle and an essential characteristic of a vision is the implementation of the vision. Okay? And not just the possibility of implementing it. So have as many vision as you want, just walk the talk. So how do we close the gap? Transparency. Quick action. There was a story by Intuit. Intuit, a company that manufacture financial software like QuickBooks and Quicken and tax reporting in the US. It's a relatively small company, but it's quite profitable. And one of the things they do is basically annual surveys. How many of you have filled an annual survey and you never know what the result is? Anyone? Few. Okay? And in this case, one of the things that drive into it is survey drives their culture. Because surveys identify answers, identify problem, identify gaps. Typically when you do survey, you will be lucky if you get 25% respondent to answer this. You know what the response rate was, I think in the late 90s? How many people actually responded to the survey? Over 70% responded. Why? Because they know whatever they say in that survey counts. Their management take action on it to improve the morale and the culture of the company. Simplicity. Use language that people can understand instead of fancy hollow word that sounds impressive. Do not waste time repeating analysis to find out what you already know. That means hire people like me, consultants. Managers to think about assumptions they make before taking action. Now, how many people actually have operation here in Knowledge Village? I'm the only one? Good, I'm safe. I was worried about some Knowledge Village partner will beat me up for what I'm going to say next. Maybe Alex and Tifanis. I need some protection possibly in a minute. I'm a consultant. We are consultants. Okay, but I think we are a different breed of consultant. Because one of the things sometimes basically, companies ask us when we go to help. The first thing I tell always my client, I use one joke here. Basically, the joke, I don't know, some of you in the back cannot read. We have one hunter, one gatherer, everyone else is a consultant. Now, you know the joke about consultants? We borrow your watch to tell you what time it is. Do you really want to pay me to come and tell you what you know already? So what am I good for? We can talk about that later. In general, though, something I always tell my clients when we go to a situation, first advice I truly give to clients, and some of them are here in the room, okay, is do it internally, if you can. It's the best option. You know the answers. You have the answer. You probably hired 3 consultants before us to tell you what we were going to tell you 2 months from now. You're probably going to tell us what we're going to put in the report at the end of the day. So do it internally. Do it internally what possible, because your people will buy into it if they help making it. And this is the theme that we're talking about before. Project-based organization, the idea of getting everyone involved. Learn as you do it. On-the-job training. Learn as you go. Now, obviously, that's why I was worried about other training provider, Knowledge Village. We can help as well. But the key is we should help to fill a niche. What do you need? What is truly missing? Then maybe we can interfere to help improve on that. Act to deal with issues, gap, problems as promptly as possible. Don't leave them. Build a culture of trust in learning. Because if you don't believe of trust, if you don't have the concept of learning and sharing knowledge, you're not going to go nowhere. The enterprise culture, I guess here was the Intuit study. I talked about it already. Other options? I'm not going to answer them for you. This is my last slide on this topic. It's for you to think. Everyone here is smart enough, intelligent enough to come up with your own answers. Okay. I have 2 more slides, but basically more about SUKAD, if you allow me, just marketing slide. Not more of marketing. I just share with you where some of our partners are and what we provide as project management. Obviously, we have Alex coming from Switzerland. Sorry. He's into program management and organizational project management maturity. You've heard them. Theophanis, IT, Microsoft. We have also been able to bring people here and do presentation like this with other partners. In leadership, we get Vijay Verma from Vancouver. PMO, we have Jack Dugal. Some of you probably attended presentation for these 2 gentlemen before. Project Management Office. Rita Mulcahy Company for certification training. Risk Management, Dr. David Hilson from the UK. Sponsorship, we're going to have a gentleman talk about project sponsorship from Madrid, Spain. And obviously, we specialize in certification training. PMP, we're going to be introducing Prince 2. CIPM, other type of certification we'll be introducing. Also, we've been doing quite a bit recently on engineering construction and the human aspect of project management and focusing on the practical side of project management. Forgive me for these 2 minutes, but basically, we felt like we at least shared this with you. Thank you very much. I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Munir, for an insightful presentation. Now I've got 5 minutes. If you're holding any questions from the previous presentations, this is the time to throw them at the 3 presenters and experts. So does anyone have any question?
Just a comment more than a question. Just a comment more than a question.
To me or the others?
No, that final part.
Okay.
Regarding that part, why people call consultant to prove to them what they already know. Sometimes the people are afraid inside the organization itself that people will be having their own opinions or they want to prove something that they are very good or something like that. Then they normally think that the consultant will be neutral and the consultant will always tell the truth, and they normally believe the consultant much more than they believe the internal people. I don't know, from your experience, did you really notice this or?
Absolutely true, because always somebody outside is smarter than the one inside. Right? No, I mean, the challenge here is true challenge, but even bringing somebody from outside, what do we do sometimes? If the person really doesn't care, the consultant doesn't care, and we've seen a lot. What we're going to see who's the decision maker, see what do they want to hear, and they will go with that. We know how to kiss the right place, right? So the issue there is neutral, but the idea also, that's the first part. But the second part, the question in this case, why do we go outside? And there is a book by Patrick Lencioni about dysfunctions of team. And one of the fundamental issues of dysfunctions of team is the lack of trust. So if we don't trust each other, who cares? We're not going to go anywhere. Anything else?
Any other question?
I have a question. You're not allowed.
Okay, it's a remark.
Go ahead. Here.
You mentioned this knowledge power or the application of this power. Can it be that the 2 things still coexist? So it's not mutually exclusive?
No, absolutely. I mean, you cannot have action on knowledge unless you have knowledge. So they have to coexist. The question, though, more or less, is how do we use the knowledge And we're going to learn, and as well, there is a bit of selfishness even in the good side of it, because if I share, if I learn, I share, I'm going to grow as well. And one is, I mean, some of you probably know, some of you who are in academic or teaching, you know, the best way to learn something is to teach it. So by teaching something, sharing something, I learn. So definitely they've got to exist together. Others? Happy birthday!
A question for Alex, please. Is TPO considered the highest level of project management maturity, or it would be found at any level of project management maturity?
I would say it's not the highest level. It's a high level maturity, a medium to high would already enable it. PPO is an organizational approach. Project management maturity is a building block to it. Some of the, let's say, decision makers need to reorganize the way the company functions, but they themselves would not be the best, let's say, project managers. So in order then to allow the company to change around, that would be a prerequisite. So yes, there is a correlation between very high level of maturity, or medium high, high, or very high, and PBO to start to think about it. But it's not exactly the same. It's a project-based organization. So therefore it's an organization. But project is a very important element, but it's not only that. There are other things. Setting strategical objectives goes beyond project and program. Portfolio.
More questions?
One practical aspect of your knowledge sharing within the organization, what I've observed often, I don't know, whatever you want to call it in your own words, but for example, if you share want to share and implement some knowledge which you have from your experience and skills, peer pressure or, you know, this competitiveness, whatever they call it, they simply don't want to accept it or follow it, because otherwise it would be said that, for example, I give 10 ideas and 8 of them work, so then obviously I'll be leading this kind of, you know, so that is often also hindering the implementation part, which is...
Two-part answers. Okay, the first part, if Edison was alive today working for one company, we would not have discovered electricity, because the rumor or the idea that thousands of times of failure. The problem is that, again, going back to trust. If a relationship doesn't trust its people, and when problems happen, when mistakes happen, we look for the guilty. We start to search for the guilty instead of look for what can we learn from the mistakes so we can improve on it. Okay, then what happened? People are afraid to try anything new. So the fear of failure in a competitive environment, why should I take risk if I'm not gonna, if it doesn't work, I will be penalized. If I get rewarded, maybe somebody else will take the credit.
But on the other hand, it's also some people simply don't want to give that credit away. I mean, even the smallest or simplest idea shared by you works, and they simply don't want to be thankful to that. And later, like for example, if you share something, they simply don't listen to you, even if, and then later when they realize it, oh, I told you this, but okay, now it's
we have three different presentations, and one thing common between us of this issue is the issue of culture. Culture is the start of everything, at the end of everything.
Yeah. So here I think the leadership in any organization plays a very important role to foster that kind of environment, to share the knowledge and give credit to the right people. So that way then.
Agreed. I want to add something. There are companies in Greece, especially telco providers, that they. Right. There are companies in Greece, especially telco providers, that they pay their employees by the ideas they have, especially marketing departments. They pay them based on how many new ideas they have. Of course, from 100 ideas, 2 or 3 or 5 become products, but they get paid for the ideas they have. So that's a different approach.
Just want to share one experience. In our company, they have started a new policy, employee recognition policy, wherein we are following a horizontal architecture hierarchy in our company. So each employee can find out the good things of his team members or the ideas that one of the team members generated. So even if your leader doesn't want that to be recognized, an employee can recognize it, put it on the portal, and everybody sees that from where the idea generated. So the idea never gets lost then.
Agree. Anything else?
I have a question for Alex.
Is it about chocolates?
Yeah. About the project-based organization. I'm thinking, is it certain industries are very much intuitive to the nature of this PBO concept, such as, for example, pharmaceutical companies are more in favor of these organizations. Presidential campaigns, for example, or Olympic Games, for example. These are very suited for the PBO kind of organizations. What do you think about that?
I fully agree, and it came up even previously with the example of the film industry or theaters and so on. The only, let's say, I would say it's not a problem. The only little hit is that these are independent, let's say, occurrences of a project-based organization. It exists in itself. It doesn't need a project-based organization because it breathes, it exists, it goes to sleep with big project. We are talking about an organization which originally was functioning by distributing power, manpower, headcount, budgets to functions, to different type of organization delivering services, and then everything which was client-facing or external, it was just sort of suffering of it. There is a shift in the paradigm, the way of operating. The filmmaking industry or the presidential campaign, they are happening relatively rarely, and they are not under the same head. There are some guidelines, maybe lessons learned, but from one game of Olympics to another, and this is a topic we discussed, the Greek Olympics, it will be one of the business cases soon. You see, it requires, 4 years minimum between two Olympics. Okay, with the Winter Olympics it's 2 years. But one team to learn from it, I mean, who is really the recipient? The Olympic Committee in Lausanne? Not really, because the people who are doing it on the floor, they are independent teams. So it's no continuity. It's not one company which is behind it. Now, there is an essential element. There are still some organizational entities providing some services. Let's say you will have a little bit of accounting. Not everything is outsourced. A little bit of IT, a little bit of human resources. It will still hang together with the vision and mission because it still remains one brand. But they organize themselves to be seen from the outside world as a series of businessmen addressing different marketing segments or market segments. So that's the whole idea. Now, I worked for a telco company, and I'm happy that you mentioned, because that was exactly the case with us. We had people being paid for ideas, exactly, marketing, within marketing product, and we had something incredible for 1,500 people. We had about 120 MBAs. I didn't even know that 2 years into the company. Young, all sorts of MBAs, not all the best. But they were literally paid to come up with ideas. And they were literally pushed into the pipeline, all the projects. And they were all dying, like all competing. Not all of these ideas were implemented, but that's another story. The idea originally was excellent. The implementation of it started to hurt because too many projects, not enough selection, no portfolio management, no prioritization. It jammed the whole machinery. So what happened is that they brought an external consultant. That's just to come back to his example. He stayed 9 months. I dare to say the amount because it shocked me then, and I was really envying him because I had more or less my experience of today. I was already just being nominated PMO manager. I had so many years of experience, and I was getting a salary, and just to survive because that was a company I was hired, out of the door. I was giving lessons. That's how I started nearly full-time to teach. I was normally a consultant for 21 or 2 years. This guy was walking in for $2,500 per day, 9 months full-time, just to put together a mega Excel sheet to prove that the traffic, is jammed. I mean, that was the end of the report. Like, too many projects. I mean, you do an average 2 days PMI course. You somehow imagine it and you verify it. You don't need to have an Excel sheet with 500 lines and I don't know how many, 20,000 columns, so you can filter in any direction just to say, yes, whoever touches me, I tell him how he is overcrowded. And that was the implementation problem of it. But after all, this company didn't turn into a project-based organization. Some aspects were there. The PMO contributed, but the PMO was, let's say, stopped somewhere in the operation. We never got to the strategic level. And now it touches what, again, is culture. You cannot change a lot of things too quickly. Management supported it, management bought into it. Up until the moment, it served the purpose. What we put in place with the PMO, it was a decision-making process for the entire company, and that's because of this consultant as well. It was not so useful, by the way. They decided from now on we have to cut out things much earlier. That was the aim, but they didn't want to relinquish their power. It was out of question this to grow into something even more mature, because in their head, PMO is disturbing. It is increasing transversal power. Maybe they are not yet right. Maybe they just don't want it. Maybe the CEO doesn't want it. All he wanted is to maintain a sort of a matrix type of balancing between everybody. So PBO, yes, but not at any dose at any time.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to have to stop the questions now. You can meet with our 3 experts after the event and have them answer your questions on a one-to-one basis. We all know, I'm sure everyone in this room knows Dubai Knowledge Village. We're the only place in the world dedicated for human resource development and management. And with over 380 business partners in training, consultancy, assessment, and HR, we position Dubai as the hub for HRD and HRM. We're also leading Dubai's move into a full-fledged economy. And more on that topic, we have our next guest speaker, Dr. Uruk, who has extensive experience in academic, technical, and administrative fields. He's known for his research in renewable energy, hydrogen energy, fuel cells, and energy policy and economics. Please welcome with me the Executive Director of Dubai Knowledge Village and Dubai International Academic City.
Presentation. First, I would like to thank Munir for educating us, defining the word knowledge, which is, for me, it was even enlightening. I was quite surprised to see this event. At least I see here around 200 participants in this event, which is quite overwhelming. I didn't expect that many people will show up on Saturday in the afternoon. I was doing my shopping when Hassan sent me a message. Please, you have to come in and make a speech. So here I am. It is very important, of course, event for me. We are going to, at least on behalf of Dubai Knowledge Village, I'm very proud to announce the launch of Project Management Association in Dubai Knowledge Village. This association, which has been direly needed by our society and by our industry. And in Dubai Knowledge Village, and in general, I would say Dubai Technology and Media Free Zone Authority, we understand the importance of project management. In fact, we have created Project Management Office last year. Of course, we were among few organizations having such an office operating under their umbrella. We in Knowledge Village, as Hassan, I think you heard a glimpse of what we do here, our role in Knowledge Village. a knowledge village, and also we have Dubai International Academic City. We have around 380 training institutes, professional development centers, consultancy firms, as well as testing centers and R&D firms and centers. Besides that, we have around 20 academic institutions, universities, from 10 countries. Of course, diversification of the nationalities of these institutions reflect diversification of our population here in Dubai and in the UAE. Our role here in Knowledge Village, Dubai Media City and Dubai Internet City, our roles here are to fulfill the vision, a vision of a great leader, which is a vision of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, and Maktoum, Vice President, Prime Minister and ruler of Dubai, in building and developing human capital. So this is what we are doing, trying to build and develop human capital that is badly needed by the industries and the sectors. There are 6 sectors that are fueling our economy, and oil and gas is not there. They are not there. Oil and gas are not there. 6 important sectors are fueling our economy. When I say oil and gas, of course, last year, if you look at our GDP, only 3% of our GDP was contributed by oil and gas. Only 3%. So it is marginalized now. So we are trying to diversify our economy. And when I said about the 6 sectors are, I have to mention them, could be finance and banking, professional services, construction and properties, trade and commerce, tourism and hospitality, yes, tourism and hospitality, and transport and logistics. So we are trying to contribute into the knowledge economy at the end. And the knowledge economy at the end. Of course, we want to see a healthy and sustainable growth in these sectors that are fueling our economy. Finally, I would like to commend Hassan Mackenzie and Munir Ajam for they are the architects behind this idea. The architects of at least turning this dream into a reality. I wish them all the success, and I wish the organization all the success, and we will provide all the support and the logistics to this association to make it happen in this country. Thank you.
Munir, if you can join me on stage. As Dr. Ayub have announced, we are in the initial stages of launching an independent project management association. Dubai Knowledge Village is supporting the association by providing, as Dr. Ayub said, the logistics, the license, and the office space. And we're already volunteering in that organization to make sure that it moves forward and it succeeds and it helps the industry of project management and to promote professional project managers like yourselves. I'm going to give the mic to Munir to give you a quick brief of what's happening with the organization, with the association, and if you have any questions, we'll be available here to answer.
Thank you again, Hassan. Thank you, Dr. Ayub. Thanks everybody for being here. Before I start talking about this, it's really like a dream come true for me. I know many of people here in the room, and I'll introduce them in a second. We've been talking about some kind of project management association for a while. The biggest challenge for us was how to legalize and register such an association. And then Hassan contacted me first. I felt, this is okay, sounds good. Let's talk about it. And then we got a solid commitment. And we tried to go to PMI to get a chapter first. And that was our initial effort. And when PMI turned it down, I thought maybe Knowledge Village would back off. Actually, the will is stronger because the community definitely need to promote knowledge in general, and project management is rapidly emerging in the area. Forgive me, I'm not going to remember everybody in the room, but I'm going to ask the people who are volunteering, because we already have at least 14, 15 people have met. We have about 25 people registered as volunteers for this association. I will start looking from here. Godwin, please stand up. Edward, please. Ibrahim, Mahdi. Okay. I know, I see Razina, please. Okay. Sufyan, please. Who did I miss? Nalin, please. Now, you haven't met with us yet, but we've been exchanging quite a bit. Who else is here that I might have missed? Okay. Please stand up one more time, all of you. Okay? Because this way you will see them. When you have a chance, you can talk to them, because this is not what Munir Ajam is doing. This is a true effort. Hassan is really taking great leadership here in Knowledge Village with Knowledge Village effort to make our life and logistics everything possible. These are the people and others that will be helping to make this engine. So you can see them, and it's this way when after we get out, you'll have a chance to talk all of us if you have any question about this. But we're going to have an opportunity to discuss this as we talk. Thank you. As Hassan mentioned and Dr. Ayub mentioned, we are launching an association. And the launch of association is going to be focusing on project and process management. So we're not limiting ourselves to project management. And our vision and dreams is basically we're launching from here, but who knows how far we can go. And it's really up to everyone in here that is interested in this profession, if you're interested in your career, if you are in project management and you want to further grow, the more you can put into this, the more you can get out of it. My presentation tonight was supposed to be about construction management, and I decided to change the topic because it was more appropriate to what we are trying to do tonight. And when we talk about knowledge sharing and the power of knowledge sharing, in this case, I urge everyone in here to think about what we have chosen as a profession. If you have chosen project management for what you want to do, this is an opportunity for you to contribute to make it better and to make our life better and our community, regardless where we come from. Okay? We work and live here, and that's definitely a place for us. But nothing will stop us from reaching anywhere. We've got people from Palestine, from India, from Singapore, Lebanese, from other locations, Tunis. So it's quite a bit of diversity. And again, like Dr. Ayub said, it reflects the reality of who we are in Dubai, and who lives in Dubai, and who works in Dubai. I'm not going to make a speech. That's basically all I want to say. I want to open the floor that where Hassan and I could answer any question you might have about what we're trying to do. In summary, I can tell you where we are right now. We've met twice. We're going to be meeting every 2 weeks as a core steering committee or steering volunteer. The association will be registered within the next few within the next few days, hopefully, or next few weeks. We were waiting to come up with a scope and name. We have some names, but I'm not going to announce any names right now until basically we can possibly finalize one, so we can get it registered. Because the process of registration, we might have to change the name. But we are. I mean, it's a matter of days where we register. Officially, will become a legal entity. As I mentioned, we already have at least 25 volunteers listed as volunteers. At least 14 of us have met. Many of them are not here tonight. We need help. We're ready to go. We're just at the beginning stages, but I'm not worried. I know we will succeed, and I know there are many opportunities for us. And trust me, we will be globally will be known. So we're not talking about small Dubai chapter. Okay.
Just a quick note. I'm sure professional project managers like yourselves understand the importance of such an association, and I'm sure you all strive to work towards making this a success. We have all your details registered as you have registered for this event, and we will keep you updated with all what will be happening through the couple of next meetings. And if you are interested in participating and putting some voluntarily effort and time into the initial stages of starting this association, you can also contact us through the contact form that was available on the project management event website. Now the floor is open for questions. Who has the first question?
Ahmed.
First of all, thank you, Munir, for starting this event. I was very excited when I heard your survey, because maybe I know the one came from Arabia, from the man, or from Kuwait. And I found out the way we've done it with the BMI, it is not fulfill all the requirements or the needs needed by all the professionals. I hope your scope to help all the professionals in many cases. So this knowledge and awareness comes not for individuals, it goes to the society. Our society as a professional. Really, I thank Mr. Ayub and Dubai Knowledge Village for taking the lead in this. I would like not to see it only for Dubai, for the Gulf, for the region, for the Arab countries. And this is in line with the word of Sheikh Mohammed for the knowledge for all the Arabs. And I hope, I will also volunteer, I'm going to tell you, from my side there, from a lot of case study or best practice, which is we believe this best practice, it is for our culture, not the culture which is in Europe or America. So this is what we need here for our countries and our development in this age. Again, thank you for your help and all the help of the guys in this way.
Thank you, Ahmed. Just out of interest, I know 3 people are visiting from out of country. Ahmed, we have Osama from Qatar, and we have Mark coming from Qatar as well. Anybody else from outside the area? Okay. As we mentioned, the effort is we are launching.
Anyone from outside Dubai?
Yeah, we're lots of people from Abu Dhabi, I know. Okay. No, the intention is we are registering here. We're starting from here with the power of volunteer, because there's one thing, Knowledge Village providing us a significant logistical support, but at the end of the day, a professional society grows by the power of its volunteers. So this is a call for action for everyone. Everyone that have ideas, good ideas, you can start sending. We will be putting a website as we formalize our brands and names and stuff like this. We will be establishing forum. One of the ideas to have is a basic technology officer. That means that we probably do some webcasting and things of that nature. So in order to reach people who are not only in the GCC, because I know there are people interested from Sudan to the whole region, and we get calls of people of interest. Any other questions? Mark.
Munir, you mentioned that PMI refused to or did not want to support the association. Does the association have any intention of being an affiliate of another international body such as IPMA or something like that?
No, and for good reason. Actually, as you saw today, 2 gentlemen came from long distance and not to help SUKAD. It's basically they came here. We are graduate of PMI leadership. Not only this, the finance and I are what we call on the people who are responsible for the review of the presentation and approving the paper for the next EMEA conference is going to be in Marrakesh next May. So we are leaders in PMI, we're volunteers in PMI, and we'll continue to be. The same thing, though, is what we want our community, to grow our community. And the idea of, basically, I was happy when PMI said no. I will be honest with you. The reason for this, we have volunteers right now, okay, that is from the British University in Dubai. The British University in Dubai will not, and which is a partner of Knowledge Village, will not subscribe to PMI. We as a consultancy, we do get requests for Prince 2 certification, which is not PMI. So by being non-IPMI chapter, first we have the power to decide what we want on our own. And basically we can basically promote, any one of us could belong to any association in the world, yet locally we can focus on helping each other as professionals, regardless which methodology or framework we subscribe to. So we do not want to limit ourselves to another association. It was for us, and this is based on the survey we did, either PMI or our own. Okay? And that's where we feel we want to contribute. And not only this, we're not just open to all frameworks, we are also open to outside project management. We're getting into process management. And as you know, project management is a set of processes. Now we want to get into operational and organizational project management and project management.
That would, that would give you more autonomy as an association, but would that not limit somewhat the exposure and the knowledge base from, let's say, an international body for not only knowledge but logistics support as well and that kind of support?
No, if you think about this, and I say no with all confidence, I'll explain why. The benefit we get as individuals. We get it from PMI globally as being individual members. Okay? Now, hopefully, ideally, local chapter should look after our interests. Okay? We complain in the UAE over here. You can see the surveys, even in responded in Saudi Arabia, it's more than 60-70% of them are complaining about PMI in the region, that we don't have a strong presence. And that's the reason they created the business case for us at the end of the day. And when we started this 20 months ago, we went to PMI agency, said, all we want from you is to increase the level of activities across the region. And when that doesn't happen, sorry, we're not going to sit and wait for PMI to, whenever they feel they want to promote project management in the region, they come. We want to move. We're not ready to wait on anyone at all. And again, the proof is here. The president of the Greece chapter and the founder of this Greece chapter here. One of the founders of the Switzerland chapter is here. And guess what? There are already at least 3 articles have been published on this on international website, which is PM Forum. So PMI knows, and we want to expand it, and we are getting a lot of support. And that's the idea. We want to do what is best for our community, and we cannot wait on somebody else to decide for us anymore. That's the idea. Yes, exposure, but what exposure? What is PMI doing for us today? As an individual, we can benefit. What's IPMA doing for us today? It's time to talk about the knowledge and power that we have. Utilize our own internal powers instead of depending on somebody from outside to tell us what power should we have. Others? Please.
We are convinced about this whole concept of having a new organization which is independent from PMI. Now, talking about volunteers, can you please be a bit more specific on what kind of voluntary service are you looking for, or can you refer us to a portal or website where we can find more information about this?
What we can tell you, will probably contact you initially, because the idea is as we activate our association, and Knowledge Village will be helping us with the website. So what we are working on is a strategic, and this is a group of us, and already Brahim and Sufyan, and there's another gentleman that's not here today, working on putting some outline about what do we want to do. And that will be shared with the team internally. And next time we're going to meet, I think on 10 September, the internal volunteer, and we're going to make a presentation for everybody about the working of association. One thing we will be doing at that time is to start to establish the theme we want to have. You know, what position would the association like this have? And on that basis, each one of us, as we formulate our strategy, okay, as we formulate our strategy and we know what some of the activities we'll be doing, we will be assigning leader to this function, and then we will be calling in basically volunteers so we can ask you to see what interests you. Are you interested to help in programs, sponsorship, leadership, basically maybe communication, maybe treasury? Based on people's interests, we will put something on the website, and we send the communication when that's done for everybody to explain what are the functions that we would like to have in this organization to start with, and looking for volunteers to basically zoom in and be specific to what they want to do. Because I can tell you one thing we're going to do. One of the biggest problems we've seen in volunteer association, a lot of people put their name, and unfortunately, we don't see them. Okay, so what we want to be specific what we want, and we want volunteers that are not just willing to put their name so we can have a name tag. We want people who are willing to take action. And I assure you that's very important to us, because we're not going to have a place for people just to put names. We're not after seats. We need action. And that basically, again, my presentation is enough. We've been talking about this for 20 months. Time for action, because we're not going to learn anything unless we start doing. Okay. So we need the volunteers to subscribe to this model. So before you put your name up there, really think hard about if you're willing to commit. And we will give you an idea what do we expect as far as commitment, as far as the number of hours we expect from you. And this way, when you volunteer, hopefully you know exactly what you're volunteering for, what kind of function, and how many hours do we expect from you on average, at least for the next 3 to 6 months, as we formulate our major plan, and then we basically be out stronger as a community. There's a microphone that says basically we do this. No, go ahead. Then Amr, and then we can hear, please.
Just what are the activities in major? I know, of course, the details will finalize later, but or is it how different from the PMI earlier chapters? I know, I mean, it has not been very active and all, but what are the activities? Would it be same as what PMI has been doing in some other region? And what is also the reach of this organization? Is it only GCC countries or other?
I cannot answer all the question in all certainty. Okay, because one of the committees we will have will be membership committee. And that membership committee have to decide how, if it's going to open the membership for everybody, okay, or we will have maybe 2 levels of membership, I don't know. So once we know, we will communicate that. Because I don't want, I mean, I have my own opinion, but I don't want to share it. Let's say maybe as a team decide that. That's one issue. Now, what kind of activities? Again, depend on you. I'm going to basically say on you and everyone in here. Definitely as a minimum, if we're not going to be able to do monthly event, we shouldn't exist. We shouldn't exist. I mean, I can give you a simple example. How come a private event like this? This is a private event. Gentlemen coming from overseas to do here. You've never seen this in AGC. Okay? Where, always local speakers. Here you've got 2 people coming, and I can assure you, Alex has been with us from the very beginning as well, and P5 has been with us for over a year, trying to help beside the scene with PMI. And basically we get to the point where we're becoming called right now the troublemakers in PMI. Because we believe in this. A year and a half ago, PMI met with Alex in Bangkok. I couldn't go, and he was there. And they said they promised to give us a chapter. Then all of a sudden, nothing happened. So activities-wise, I can assure you, okay, I would not be associated with this if we're not willing to go way, way, way beyond what's been happening before. Not to prove something, because we need it. We need it. Monthly event, maybe breakfast, maybe conferences, okay? Maybe a side trip. Some of you, we have Nakhil here. I'm sure we've got Sabiq, we've got other people in here. I'm sure many companies. Why can't we go and learn from each other? Okay? Again, I cannot drive that. Remember the challenge on one of my slides? I cannot force you to commit or to volunteer or to share. It has to come from you.
One of the success factors for PMI is their standards and framework for project management. Is there any intention for the Association of Project Management to have its own standards?
The sky is the limit, but right now, no. Immediately, no. We cannot. Let's be honest about it. Okay? But let me give you some bad news. Okay? And this is one of the reasons we're also called troublemakers in PMI. We're the revolutionary guard. No, I'm serious. ISO is developing its own standard. And 16, Greece just announced, the government of Greece, they are launching their own project management standard. So if that happened, and they force companies basically that if you want to do project management, you must comply with the Greek standard. What's going to happen to PMI in Greece? What's going to happen to PMI if an ISO standard that is not in line with PMI? Okay? So the PMI, strong marketing, unfortunately, much smaller organization are able to perform better. And this is why long-term vision that I see, I was happy, and I can share with people don't probably understand fully what I mean when I say I'm happy when PMI said no. Because we have the freedom to do whatever we want.
Just again, regarding the same subject, this email or this contact will be there for each and every person who is there in the place now, or it will be only for the selected people who are related to Knowledge Village, or let's say in other words, like have a specific business with the Knowledge Village.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's number one. Number two.
Can we? Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, please.
No, can we take it one by one, or you would like to go to first?
Whatever.
Hassan answers it first, right? Because he's Knowledge Village representative.
All right, the association does not belong to Dubai Knowledge Village. We are supporting the association, but it's going to be independent from Dubai Knowledge Village. Now we're playing a big role to make it happen. We're giving it a big push. We're supporters in it. Myself and Dr. Ayub are volunteers. It doesn't stand on Dubai Knowledge Village business partners only. It would extend to include everyone in this room and any other professional project manager in this region. So to answer your question, no, it's not only limited to Dubai Knowledge Village or its business partners.
Let me add to that, because also on site, the people who are here, National Bank of Abu Dhabi, Emirates Airline, Hilton International, okay, Dubai Courts, so it's anybody. Okay, these gentlemen will be helping us from, with a lot of other back support that whatever they can do is from remotely. So the idea is anyone is welcome, okay, and it's not limited. And as we said, Knowledge Village is going to do a great job on providing us the necessary support to launch us. Okay? It's not going to babysit us. They're not going basically to do the work for us. They're not going to market for us. They're not going to go, okay? They are providing us a facility to have offices, okay, for at least when we launch. We're going to help us with logistical support, website. They're going to help us with the license fee so we don't have to pay any money initially, okay, and all of this stuff. But later on, it's going to be us.
Second question, regarding the meetings of which is planned between all the members. There will be any confliction with the normal working time because most of the people will be simply in their job in the morning session. I mean, will it be kept in mind to be on Saturdays or to?
You mean the volunteer meeting?
Yeah, the monthly meeting or the events, all the activities of the association.
Again, I cannot answer that because eventually that is all depend on the volunteers. They might be, personally, I would like to see at all levels. But usually, definitely, there will be evening presentation. That's common. But we hope to see others as well. Now, again, all depend on what can we do. Okay?
The past two meetings that were all held during weekdays, and they were not meetings. So they started at 6, supposedly to end at 7. They were ended at 7, extended to 10. But I mean, with the number growing, we can definitely should consider holding meetings over weekends where everyone else can be available at that meeting.
Please, others?
PMI has its own methodology and proven and approved by across the globe and the companies over here. Whether you will have your own methodology for the project management or still you will follow the PMI methodology and marketing to across the companies with based on what methodology you will be marketing your organization in the Middle East or in the world.
Nothing. We're not going to promote any methodology. Each individual, we're going to have members that subscribe to Prince 2, we're going to have members at IPMA, we're going to have members at PMI. So we're not going to promote one methodology over another or one framework over another. Each one of us is free to follow whatever they want. All what we're trying to do in this case is to create an atmosphere for knowledge sharing and cross-fertilization of ideas. And to be able to promote the profession and to promote the opportunity to learn project management. If you look at project management, whether IPMA or PMI or Prince 2 or the Japanese or the Australian or the South African, project management is project management. Names might be different. Methodology might be a little bit of word here and there. At the end of the day, the core foundation of project management is the same. So at the end, when we promote project management, we are promoting networking. We are promoting an opportunity to learn from each other. Doesn't matter where we belong. And you as an individual, you can become members in all of these associations. Also, let's forget, we always talk about PMI and IPMA. I don't know how many members here are from an advanced association for the advancement of cost engineer, for example, or that are quality approved, that basically certified, or value engineering specialized. There are a lot of certifications out there that relate to project management that PMI doesn't even do. And we want to touch on all of those things.
Right, let's start from here. Project management is a profession. In UK, there are 300,000 doctors and 300,000 lawyers. Last week, I think 2 weeks ago, it was reported that in UK, there are 300,000 project managers, which means project management have the same number of people as lawyers and doctors in the UK.
But about 4,000 PMI members.
Yes, it's the biggest chapter in the world, yes.
Other questions? Okay, thank you very much for being here. I will close with one note before I will, Hassan have a final chance to close. Just a reminder that, by the way, PMPs, you can still earn PDUs. That's the best news for the night for most of you, right? If you have not signed your name outside, okay, please make sure you sign them. in order for us to be able to, we will email you. In that case, we'll email you the code and how do you go and claim your PDUs as a PMP. You will be able to earn 3 PDUs for being here in this event, but we need to make sure that you sign on an event outside. And that will be, basically, you will have those 3 PDUs. No questions asked. Nobody, if somebody tells you you cannot do this, tell them go away. Okay? It's on the PMI website already. So, stubborn maybe, I don't know. Nothing fancy, but I have to say something. I have not thanked Alex and Divine being here. I can assure you both of them are here unpaid. So they are not consultants that I'm paying for them to be here to share with you, to be here with you. Alex is here on a business trip. Divine came especially for this event, and he's been here 3 days, 4 days away from his family. And again, he's not paid to be here to share. So this is, all I want to say in this is to share that the commitment is global, is not only here. And nothing fancy, as you mentioned, we forgot to do something. I would like to basically, to close this with giving a few people a certificate of thank you. And that would be to Yufanis and Alex, Hassan and Dr. Ayub, if you don't mind. Nothing fancy again, as you mentioned, but Dr. Ayub, first, let's start with you. Thank you. Thank you. The Greek first.
The Greek, yes. There's in Greek. He's the answer to the Greek.
If you don't mind, take a picture together. Thank you.
This way.
This way.
Make sure you don't do a George Bush one.
One thing I need to add here, when I said that providing support and logistics, of course, we need to. Yeah. One thing, when I said that we will provide them support and logistics, of course, we have around, as I mentioned, 20 academic institutions, universities. 3 of them, they offer MS programs, master programs, and project management. We will ask them to liaise with the association, to work with them. 3 of these institutions, 2 of them are from UK and 1 from Pakistan. And there is another one that's going to come in. It's going to be a big one. One of the tier 1 universities from the States. So it is, we keep on rolling. And we will provide them, of course, we will tell them to liaise with the association. That's going to come in soon, hopefully. Okay? Thank you.
All right, we come to the end of the event. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. I would like to thank our special guests, Munira Ajam, Theophanis, Alexander, and Dr. Ayub. I hope you found this beneficial, insightful, and knowledgeable. And we hope to hear from you soon, and you're going to hear from us soon regarding this association. Have a pleasant evening. Thank you very much.